My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter at 7:12 that evening. I was standing beside the birthday cake I hadn't cut, scraping dried cheese from a plate I hadn't used. The message came from Broadkill House. Your table for the Harrison party is ready. I read it twice. 3 hours earlier, my son had canceled our dinner. Joshua said Natalie needed him at home. He sounded rushed, concerned, and just guilty enough to make me believe him. Now the restaurant was telling me his in-laws had a table. My name is Arthur Bennett, and I'm 68 years old. Before I go on, what city are you listening from? I live at 41 Chestnut Street in Milton, Delaware. It's a narrow brick house with white trim and an electrical panel I rebuilt myself. My wife used to call that panel my second medicine cabinet. Whenever something bothered me, I opened it and started labeling wires. She died 5 years ago. After that, the house got quieter in practical ways. 1 coffee cup instead of 2. 1 towel on the bathroom rack. Half the groceries spoiled before I learned how little food one person actually eats. I kept her blue ceramic bowl on the hall table. She used to drop her keys in it as soon as she came home. I still put mine there. Some habits aren't about convenience. I've been a licensed master electrician most of my adult life. I know how to find a fault without tearing open every wall. You check what works. You check what stopped working. Then you trace the difference. I wasn't nearly as careful with my family. Joshua is my only son. He's 40 now. He married Natalie in 2014, and for a long time, I thought we got along well. Not close exactly, but comfortable. Natalie would hug me at holidays. Joshua called when he needed advice. They invited me over often enough that I never questioned why almost every invitation included a broken outlet, a ceiling fan, or something that needed its own circuit. I liked being needed. That's the honest version. About 6 months after my wife died, Joshua called on a Saturday morning. "Dad, are you busy?" I was at the kitchen table sorting old receipts. "What happened? Why do you always assume something happened? Because you called before 9. He laughed. "Okay, the lights over the island keep blinking. All of them? Just when the microwave runs. That's not blinking, that's voltage drop. So, you're busy." I didn't say that. I packed my meter, 2 screwdrivers, and a few wire connectors. Then I drove over. Joshua and Natalie lived outside Milton in a 2-story house that looked newer than it was. The builder had saved money behind every wall. I'd already replaced 3 outlets, corrected a loose neutral, and separated a bathroom circuit someone had tied into the garage. Natalie opened the door while holding a mug. "Thank God," she said. "It's driving me crazy." Joshua came from the kitchen. "I told you he'd know." That sentence did more for me than it should have. I found a loose connection in the panel. It wasn't complicated, but it could have gotten worse. I shut off the circuit, fixed it, and tested the load. Joshua stood behind me. "What do I owe you?" "Nothing. Dad." "Buy me lunch sometime." He smiled. "Deal." We didn't get lunch. That happened more than once. The problem wasn't that he forgot. The problem was that I kept offering another chance before he noticed the first one. Broadkill House started as something my wife and I shared. I joined in 2018, 3 years before she died. It's a private dining club in an old coastal house outside town. Nothing flashy from the road. Gray siding, deep porch, brass lamps by the entrance. My wife liked the dining room near the windows. I liked that the staff remembered she hated ice in her water. We went there on anniversaries and sometimes on ordinary Thursdays. When I joined, the club gave me a membership agreement in a cream-colored folder. I read it at my desk and signed every required page. Electricians read rules. If you misunderstand a service agreement, someone gets burned. After my wife died, I stopped going for a while. Then Joshua suggested dinner there on the first anniversary. "You shouldn't avoid the place forever," he said. He was right. We sat at my wife's favorite table. Natalie ordered the crab cakes. Joshua kept the conversation moving whenever it got too quiet. That night helped me. A few months later, I added Joshua and Natalie as supplemental members. It meant they could reserve tables and charge meals to my account. I remained the primary member. The monthly statement came to me. When I handed them the cards, Natalie looked surprised. "Arthur, are you sure? You two can use it when you want a nice evening." Joshua turned the card over in his hand. "We'll pay you back. You don't have to do that every time." He looked at me. "We're not taking advantage." I didn't say you were. At first, they weren't. A dinner appeared every few months, $80. 110. Once, a little over 200 for their anniversary. Joshua would send a message the next morning. Thanks, Dad. Great dinner. That was enough for me. Then Heather learned about the cards. Heather Harrison is Natalie's mother. She's 64. Her husband, Frank, is 66. Frank is quiet in the way some men become quiet after years of finding out that silence shortens an argument. Heather isn't quiet. She likes arrangements. Seating arrangements, holiday arrangements, travel arrangements. If everyone else is already seated, she'll still move a chair. The first time I knew she had used Broadkill House was at Natalie's birthday dinner. I had been invited to Joshua's house for cake. Heather was standing by the kitchen island, describing something she'd eaten. They do a very good sea base, she said. I was filling a glass at the sink. Who does? Broadkill House. I turned around. You went there? Last Thursday. Frank had never been. Frank looked up from his cake. Very nice place. Heather smiled at me. Natalie arranged it. Natalie was cutting another slice. She kept her eyes on the knife. I asked, You went with them? No, she said. I made the reservation. Joshua walked in carrying plates. Heather said, We used the family membership. There was something practiced in the phrase. I looked at Joshua. How did they charge it? He set the plates down. Natalie used her card. She wasn't there. It went through. That wasn't my question. The kitchen got quiet. Heather picked up her fork. Arthur, if it's an issue, just say so. I hadn't called it an issue. That was what caught my attention. Natalie finally looked at me. Mom and Dad wanted a nice dinner. I thought it was okay. You could have asked. I didn't think I needed permission for one reservation. Joshua said, Dad, it was one dinner. Heather took a small bite of cake and watched me. I could have stopped it then. I knew exactly how. The membership agreement allowed the primary member to revoke supplemental privileges immediately. I'd read that condition before I added the cards. Existing reservations could still be honored, but the diners would need another accepted form of payment. The agreement was inside my locked desk at home. Joshua and Natalie had the supplemental cards in their wallets. I had given them access. I could take it back. Instead, I said, Ask me next time. Natalie nodded quickly. Of course. Heather said, There. Easy. That should have bothered me more than it did. A week later, Joshua called about an outlet in their guest room. It's making a buzzing sound, he said. Stop using it. We did. I can come Tuesday. Could you do Sunday? Heather and Frank are staying over next week. I had planned to clean the gutters Sunday. I moved that job. When I arrived, Heather was already there. She was sitting at the dining table with Natalie, looking through paint samples. Arthur, she said, like she had expected a delivery. He's here for the outlet, Natalie told her. Heather glanced toward the hallway. While you're looking, the light in that closet is terrible. I set my tool bag down. Which closet? The guest room. You can barely see anything. Joshua came downstairs. You don't have to do the light today. Heather waved her hand. He's already here. I looked at Joshua. He rubbed the back of his neck. Only if you have time, Dad. That was how requests worked in their house. Heather made them. Joshua softened them. Natalie waited. I replaced the outlet. Its internal connection had loosened, so I checked the others on that wall. Then I opened the closet fixture. The light wasn't defective. Heather just didn't like it. You could put in one of those bright flat panels, she said. I don't have one with me. There's a hardware store 10 minutes away. I know where it is. She smiled. Perfect. I bought the fixture myself. By the time I finished, it was after 2. Joshua had ordered sandwiches. Mine was wrapped in paper on the counter. Sorry, he said. They got hungry. I ate standing up. Before I left, Natalie hugged me and said, You're the best. Heather was in the other room, telling Frank the closet finally looked usable. That night, I opened my Broadkill House statement. The Harrisons' dinner had cost $386. There were 4 entrees, 2 bottles of wine, desserts, and a service charge. One dinner, Joshua had said. The next statement arrived with 2 more charges. One was a lunch for $148. The other was dinner for $412. I called Joshua. Did you and Natalie go to the club twice last month? There was a pause. We went once. Lunch or dinner? Dinner. Who had lunch? Another pause. I think Natalie's parents. You think? Dad, I don't track their schedule. It's on my account. I know. I'll ask Natalie. He called back that evening. Yeah, her mom used the card. Which time? Lunch. What about the other dinner? That was us. Who was with you? He sighed. Why does that matter? Because the bill was over $400. Natalie's parents came, so I paid for them twice. It wasn't planned that way. I looked down at the statement. Did Heather ask before the lunch? I don't know. You don't know whether she asked your wife? Dad, it's not like she stole the card. I didn't say she stole it. You sound like you're accusing her. I'm asking who's using my account. He went quiet. Then he said, I'll talk to Natalie. That phrase became his favorite form of delay. The next Saturday, Joshua and Natalie came to my house. They brought bagels. At first, I thought that meant we were finally going to have the conversation. Natalie set the bag on the kitchen counter. Mom feels awful, she said. Did she say that? She doesn't want you thinking she took advantage. I waited. Joshua opened a cabinet and took down 3 plates. He still knew where everything was. Natalie continued. She thought the card was for family use. It's your card, I know. So, why does she have it? I made the reservations and charged them to me. She folded the top of the bag twice. I didn't realize the amount bothered you. I said, the amount isn't the first problem. Joshua put a bagel on each plate. What's the first problem? Nobody asked. Natalie nodded, but slowly. Okay, we can ask. Before making the reservation. Yes. And Heather doesn't use the account by herself. Natalie's mouth tightened. Joshua said, That seems fair? She looked at him. I didn't say it wasn't fair. For the rest of breakfast, we talked about weather and a road project near town. When they left, Joshua carried the empty bag to the trash. Natalie hugged me at the door. Nobody mentioned returning the cards. 2 days later, an envelope from Broadkill House arrived. It contained a promotional card for winter dining and a printed summary of recent account activity. I placed it on the kitchen counter. The next afternoon, Joshua stopped by while I was in the garage. He said he wanted to borrow my long extension ladder. When I came inside, the club envelope was gone. I checked the recycling bin. It was under a grocery flyer, opened and folded in half. Joshua was fastening the ladder to his truck. I carried the envelope outside. Did you open this? He looked at it, then at me. It was already open. It wasn't. He pulled the strap tighter. I thought it might be mine. We're attached to the account. It had my name on it. He stopped working. Dad, I wasn't trying to hide anything. I didn't say you were. His face changed when I used his own words back. He lowered his voice. Natalie's worried. You're upset about the club. She should ask me. She thinks you'll cancel the cards. Should I? He looked toward the cab of his truck. No, I just think everybody needs to calm down. I held out my hand. For what? The ladder. He stared at me. I thought I could borrow it. Not today. Why? Because I said no. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. Then Joshua loosened the strap and slid my ladder down. He leaned it against the garage wall. Fine, he said. He drove away without saying goodbye. I carried the envelope inside. Then I opened my locked desk, took out the membership agreement, and read the supplemental privileges page again. The wording hadn't changed since I first signed it. Supplemental access existed at the primary member's discretion. I could remove it by contacting the club office. The cards didn't need to be physically returned first. I ran my finger under that paragraph. Then I closed the agreement and locked it away. I told myself I was being reasonable. Joshua opening my mail had bothered me. Taking away the cards immediately would look like punishment. That was my excuse. The truth was simpler. I didn't want to remove something that gave him a reason to call me. 3 days passed before he did. I was replacing a switch in my laundry room when my phone rang. Hey, Dad, did the ladder work out? He didn't answer right away. I borrowed one from Frank. Good. Another pause followed. Then Joshua said, Are we okay? I tightened the screw on the switch. You opened my mail. I told you, I thought it might be ours. It had my name on the front. I shouldn't have opened it. That was closer to an apology than I expected. No, you shouldn't have. All right, I'm sorry. I sat on the washing machine. Thank you. His voice relaxed. So, we're okay? I didn't say that. Dad, I'm not trying to drag it out. I want to know why you were worried about that envelope. I wasn't worried. Then why open it? I saw the club logo. Natalie said her mom had another dinner coming up, and I wanted to make sure it wasn't on there yet. I stopped moving. Another dinner? She's taking Frank for his birthday. Using my account? I don't know. You just said you wanted to see if it was listed. I meant the reservation. I didn't know how the statement worked. You've had a card for 4 years. I don't study the paperwork. Neither of us spoke. Finally, I asked, did Natalie make that reservation? I think so. Ask her. He let out a breath. I will. Ask her now. She's working. Then ask her when she's done. All right, and call me back. He didn't like that. I could hear it in the silence. I said I would handle it. No, you said you'd ask. What's the difference? Handling it means I get an answer. He called back after 6. Natalie was with him. They had me on speakerphone. She spoke first. I canceled Mom's reservation. I was standing at my kitchen counter. I had started making soup and hadn't turned on the burner. You canceled it? Yes. Was it going to be charged to my account? It would have been attached to the membership. That isn't what I asked. Joshua said, Dad, she canceled it. Natalie spoke over him. Yes. Mom expected it to be charged. There it was. Not a misunderstanding, not a one-time favor, an expectation. Why did she expect that? I asked. Natalie said, because the other meals were. Why were the other meals? I don't know. I guess it became a habit. Whose habit? Mine. Okay? Her voice sharpened. I made the reservations. I used my card. Mom didn't sneak into my purse. Joshua said, nobody said she did. Natalie continued anyway. I should have asked you. I get that. It's canceled. I looked through the doorway at the hall table. My keys were sitting in the blue bowl. Thank you for canceling it. Her voice softened a little. You're welcome, Joshua said. Can we put this behind us now? I should have asked why that mattered so much to him. Instead, I said yes. That weekend, they invited me to dinner. Natalie made roast chicken and potatoes. When I arrived, Joshua was outside fighting with a new gas grill. He had assembled the legs backward. You want help? I asked. He looked up and smiled. I was hoping you'd get here early. I took off my jacket and set it over a chair. The grill wasn't electrical work. It was 4 bolts and a poor instruction sheet. I turned the base around while Joshua held the top. This thing was designed by somebody who hates people, he said. No, it was packaged by somebody who hates instructions. He laughed. For 20 minutes it felt normal. We used to do small jobs together when he was younger. He never cared about wiring, but he liked handing me tools. He'd hold the flashlight exactly where I asked, then move it as soon as I needed both hands. When we finished, Joshua stepped back. Looks good. You had the base backward. It still looks good. Inside, Heather and Frank were already at the table. I hadn't known they were coming. Heather smiled when I walked in. Arthur, Natalie said you saved the grill. Joshua followed me through the doorway. He fixed my mistake. Heather said, that's what fathers are for. She meant it as a joke. I sat across from Frank. He gave me a short nod. How are you? Fine. You? Can't complain. Heather answered for him. His shoulder is acting up again. Frank moved his water glass. It's fine. Dinner stayed pleasant for about 10 minutes. Then Heather brought up Broadkill House. Natalie told me my reservation was canceled. Natalie put down her fork. Mom, we talked about this. I know, I'm not arguing. She looked at me. I just wish someone had told me there were rules. I said, there are always rules when someone else pays. Heather smiled without showing her teeth. I didn't realize you saw it that way. How did you see it? As a family benefit. It's my membership. Of course it is. Joshua cut into his chicken. Heather kept looking at me. But you gave the cards to Joshua and Natalie. Natalie is our daughter. You can understand how the line got a little blurry. The line is the name on the account. Frank cleared his throat. Chicken's good, Nat. Nobody answered him. Heather said, I offered to reimburse you. That was new. When? I told Natalie I would. Natalie looked uncomfortable. You said you could if Dad needed it. Heather turned to her. That's the same thing. It isn't, I said. Joshua leaned back. Can we not do this during dinner? Heather picked up her napkin. I'm trying to clear the air. No, I said. You're trying to make the question sound rude. Her face went still. Joshua looked at me. Dad. What? You don't have to talk to her like that. Heather placed the napkin beside her plate. It's fine, Joshua. It wasn't fine. She wanted him to object for her. He did. She already said she'd pay you back. She didn't say it to me, then tell us the amount. I looked at him for a moment. You opened the statement. His fork stopped. Natalie stared at her plate. Heather's eyes moved from Joshua to me. He said, I didn't memorize it, but you knew enough to check the next one. I apologized for that. Yes, you did. Then why are you bringing it up? Because you're asking me for the amount. He pushed his chair back slightly. I'm trying to solve the problem, I said. The problem is everybody's trying to solve it without asking me what it is. That finally ended the conversation. After dinner, Frank carried 2 plates to the sink. Heather told him to leave them because Natalie had a dishwasher. Joshua went outside to test the grill. I helped Natalie wrap the leftover chicken. She kept smoothing the same piece of foil. I'm sorry, she said. For what part? She gave me a tired look. Can you not make me list everything? I need to know which part you understand. She pressed the foil around the plate. I shouldn't have used the card for them, without asking. And Joshua knew. She didn't answer. Natalie? He knew about some of the dinners. How many? I don't know. More than one? Yes. Did he ever tell you to ask me? She leaned both hands against the counter. He said you probably wouldn't care. That answer hurt more than Heather's attitude. Not because it was cruel, because it sounded like Joshua. He knew I usually said yes. He had built my answer into the plan before anyone spoke to me. Natalie continued. You like helping us. I do. That's why I thought it was okay. To pay for your parents? No, to use something you gave us. I folded the empty foil box closed. I gave it to you and Joshua. I understand that now. I wasn't sure she did. Joshua came back inside. The grill works, he said. Natalie picked up the wrapped plate. Your dad and I were talking. Joshua looked between us. About what? The cards. His shoulders dropped. I thought we finished that. I asked how many dinners you knew about. He rubbed his forehead. Dad, I don't know. A few. How many is a few? 3. Maybe 4. The statement showed more than that. Did you know about the lunch? I knew Heather and Frank were going. Did you know I was paying? He looked toward the dining room. Heather was talking loudly enough that we could hear her, but not understand the words. Joshua lowered his voice. I assume Natalie handled it. What does that mean? It means I didn't ask. That was the first completely honest thing he had said all evening. He didn't ask because asking might require him to object. I put the foil box back in the drawer. Joshua said, We'll keep their meals separate. Starting now? Yes. And no more reservations for them on the membership. He glanced at Natalie. She nodded. Fine, he said. I waited. He looked at me again. Fine. We won't do it. It was a small answer. I took it anyway. When I left, Joshua walked me to my truck. He put his hands in his pockets. Do you want to come by next week? What for? He hesitated. We could have dinner. Just dinner? Yeah. No electrical work? He smiled. No electrical work. What about the garage lights? His smile disappeared. How did you know about those? Natalie mentioned them last month. They're not urgent. So you were going to ask? Eventually. I opened the truck door. Call me when dinner is just dinner. He looked embarrassed. That's not fair. Then prove me wrong. I drove home feeling better for about 5 minutes. Then I realized I had turned another invitation into a test. I didn't trust him to want my company, but I kept waiting for him to prove he did. At home, I reheated the soup I hadn't finished making earlier. I ate at the kitchen table with the club statement spread beside me. I went through each charge. Some matched messages from Joshua. Some matched dates Natalie had mentioned. 5 charges had no explanation at all. Together, those 5 came to more than $1,000. I took out a yellow pad and wrote down every date and amount. I added a note beside the charges I could identify. When I finished, I called Joshua. He answered on the 4th ring. Hey, everything okay? I found 5 meals I don't recognize. He was quiet. I read the dates. After the 3rd one, he said, That might have been Heather. Might have? She had people visiting. Who? I don't know. Were you there? No. Was Natalie? I don't think so. I looked at the remaining 2 charges. What about the other dates? I'd have to ask. Do that. Dad, it's late. It's 8:20. We just had this conversation. No, we had a conversation about 3 or 4 dinners. Now I'm looking at 5 more. He exhaled close to the phone. I'll call you tomorrow. You said that before. And I called, after I told you to. His voice hardened. What do you want from me? I looked at the yellow pad. I want you to tell me the truth before I find it on a bill. He didn't answer. Then I heard Natalie in the background. What's wrong? Joshua covered the phone, but not well enough. My dad's going through every charge. Natalie said something I couldn't hear. Joshua came back. She'll look at the dates. Put her on. She's tired. So am I. Tomorrow, Dad. He ended the call. I sat at the table with the phone still against my ear. For years I had told myself Joshua called because we were close. Looking at those statements, I could see how many calls had started with a problem he wanted me to fix. I went back through my calendar: garage outlet, kitchen lights, guest room fixture, outdoor receptacle, dining account. There were birthdays and holidays between them. There were a few meals. There were good afternoons too. But the pattern was there. I had helped build it. Every time Joshua offered to pay, I refused. Every time he promised lunch, I let it disappear. Every time Natalie called me the best, I accepted that as payment. Then I acted surprised when they began treating my time and money as things that renewed themselves. I picked up the phone again. This time, I called Broadkill House. The woman who answered asked for my member number. I read it from the statement. "I need to ask about supplemental account activity," I said. She verified my address and date of birth. Then she said, "What would you like to know? Can a supplemental member make a reservation for people who aren't members?" "Yes, if the supplemental member remains responsible for the reservation." "Do they have to attend?" There was a short pause. "Under normal policy, yes." I looked at the 5 charges. What if they don't? If the table is still accepted under the linked account, the primary member remains financially responsible unless restrictions were already placed. So, these meals shouldn't have happened. I can't make that determination without reviewing each reservation. Can you tell me who made them? I can tell you which supplemental number was used. That was enough. All 5 had been made with Natalie's supplemental number. I wrote that beside every charge. Then I asked, "Was her card presented at the restaurant?" The woman checked. "Not on the first 2. The reservations were booked by phone. And the other 3? Her supplemental number was provided when the tables were reserved. Was she at any of them? I don't have attendance records I can verify for you. I understand." She offered to transfer me to the club office so I could add restrictions. I looked toward the locked desk in the next room. "Not tonight," I said. After the call, I placed the statements in yellow pad beside the membership agreement. I finally had one clear answer. Natalie's access had paid for all 5 meals. The harder answer was sitting in my own calendar. They had learned to treat me as useful because I had spent years offering usefulness whenever I wanted to feel included. I locked the desk, took my mobile phone off the kitchen counter, and turned it face down for the night. It stayed that way until 9 the next morning. Then I turned the phone over and called Natalie. She answered from her car. "Hi, Arthur. Is everything okay? I need to talk about the 5 meals." Joshua had already told her. Her voice changed. "I have work in 10 minutes. Then we can talk tonight. We're having dinner at home. I'll come at 7. She hesitated. "Can we do this on the phone?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I want all 3 of us looking at the same dates." She was quiet for a moment. "All right, 7. I copied the charges onto one clean sheet. I included dates, amounts, and the supplemental number used. At 7, I parked beside Joshua's truck. Heather's car was in the driveway. Natalie opened the door before I knocked. "Mom wanted to be here," she said. "Why?" "Because some of the meals were hers. That's what I came to confirm." Heather was sitting at the kitchen table. Frank wasn't with her. Joshua stood by the sink with his arms folded. A pot of coffee had been made. Nobody offered me any. I sat down and placed my paper on the table. Heather glanced at it. "I don't know why this needs to feel like an audit." "It isn't an audit. It's 5 questions." Natalie sat beside her mother. Joshua remained standing. I pointed to the first date. "Who attended this lunch?" Heather leaned forward. "I did. Frank did. My sister and her husband were visiting." "Was Natalie there?" "No." "Joshua?" "No." "Who made the reservation?" I called. Natalie looked at her. "You said I called that one." "No, honey, you gave me the number." Joshua unfolded his arms. "What number?" "The number from her card." I looked at Natalie. "You gave Heather your supplemental number? She needed it for the reservation." "You told me you made the reservations." "I made some." "Yesterday, the club confirmed your number was used for all 5. Heather said, "That doesn't mean Natalie personally called. I understand that now." Natalie pressed her lips together. I moved to the second date. "Who attended this dinner?" Heather answered. "Frank and I had dinner with friends." "Who made the reservation?" "I did." "Did you tell them Natalie wouldn't be there?" "I don't remember what I said." Did you tell them I approved the charge? I never used your name. That wasn't my question. She gave me a patient look. Arthur, when they asked for the membership number, I provided it. They accepted the reservation. I assumed that meant everything was allowed. You assumed I would pay? I assumed Natalie had permission to use the membership. For your dinner, for a family dinner. Neither Joshua nor Natalie attended. Family doesn't stop being family because someone misses a meal. Joshua shifted his weight. Can we just reimburse him? Heather glanced up at him. I offered. No, I said. You told Natalie you could pay if I needed it. Heather's mouth tightened. Fine, I'll write you a check. I didn't come for a check. She leaned back. Then what do you want? I want the truth about who has been using my account. You have it. I pointed to the third date. The pattern stayed the same. Heather had made the reservation. She and Frank had attended with another couple. Natalie had given her the supplemental number and the phone number connected to the account. The fourth dinner was for Heather, Frank, Joshua, and Natalie. The fifth was for Heather and Frank alone. When we finished, 3 of those charges had been made without either supplemental member present. Natalie looked at the paper. I didn't realize Mom was booking that many. Heather turned toward her. You knew about everyone. I knew you went out. I didn't know you were always using the club. You gave me the number. For the first reservation. Heather laughed once. Did you think the number expired? Joshua said. Enough. Heather looked at him. I'm not the one interrogating everyone. I folded my hands on the table. I asked simple questions. You arrived with a list, because your daughter wouldn't answer them on the phone. Natalie's face flushed. I answered you. You said you made the reservations. I made some. 1. She looked down. Heather said, This is getting ridiculous. I turned to her. Don't use the membership again. She blinked. I beg your pardon? Don't call the club. Don't use Natalie's number. Don't charge anything to my account. I just said I'd pay you. This isn't about repayment. Then it's about control. Joshua finally sat down. Mom, just don't use it. Heather stared at him. I don't need your permission to understand what he's doing. Joshua rubbed both hands over his face. Natalie said, Mom, please. Heather pushed her chair back. I've never had someone turn a few family meals into a character trial. You made 3 reservations you weren't entitled to make. The restaurant accepted them. The restaurant thought Natalie was responsible. She was. I paid the bill. Heather looked at Joshua. Does he talk to you this way? Joshua didn't answer. She turned back to me. You know what I think? I think you like being generous as long as everyone stays grateful enough. The room went very still. Honestly, I almost dismissed it because of the way she said it. Then I realized part of it was true. I had been generous with expectations I never admitted. I wanted Joshua to notice. I wanted him to choose me. I wanted every fixed switch and paid dinner to lead to something ordinary, like a phone call with no request attached. That didn't make the charges acceptable. It did explain why I had let them continue. I said, You're right about one thing. Heather's eyebrows lifted. I should have set limits earlier. That isn't what I said. It's what I heard. Joshua looked at the table. I continued. No more reservations for Heather or Frank. The supplemental cards are for you and Natalie only. If either of you wants to bring guests, ask me first. Natalie nodded. All right. I looked at Joshua. He said, Yes. Heather picked up her purse. This is humiliating. I didn't answer. She walked to the front door. Before leaving, she turned toward Joshua. Call me when everyone calms down. The door shut. Natalie stared at me. You could have let her write the check. And then what? She would have felt like the issue was settled. It wouldn't have been. Joshua stood. I'll make sure she doesn't use the number. How? I'll tell her. You just did. He looked toward the front door. I'll tell her privately. I slid the paper toward him. Keep this. He didn't take it. What for? So you remember what we agreed. His face changed. I don't need a written reminder. Then throw it away after you remember. Natalie picked up the page. We'll keep it. Joshua looked at her, but said nothing. I stood and put on my jacket. As I reached the kitchen doorway, he spoke. Are you still going to help with the garage lights? Natalie closed her eyes. He noticed too late. I'm not asking tonight, he said. I just mean eventually. I looked at him. No. He stared at me. No, not tonight. No, I'm not doing the garage lights. Why? You can hire someone. Dad, come on. You need 4 fixtures replaced and a new switch leg. That's a full day. I'll pay for the materials. That isn't what my time costs. His expression hardened. So now you're charging me? I'm not taking the job. You just said I could hire someone. Yes, but not you. Correct. Natalie said quietly. Joshua, let him go. He stepped away from the sink. Fine. This time, I didn't take the word as agreement. I left. The next morning, Joshua sent me a message with a picture of the garage ceiling. What type of fixtures should I buy? I wrote back. Ask the electrician you hire. He responded almost immediately. Seriously? I set the phone down. 10 minutes later, it rang. Dad, I'm not asking you to install them. You're asking me to plan the job. I'm asking what kind of light to buy. That depends on the wiring, the ceiling boxes, and the coverage you want, which you already know. Then you should know what to buy. He went quiet. You're proving a point. I'm answering your question. No, you're withholding the answer. I told you to hire someone. For 4 lights? For a full day of electrical work. He lowered his voice. Do you know what electricians charge now? Yes. The silence that followed was almost funny. Then he said, Can you recommend someone? That was a direct request. I gave him the number of a contractor I trusted. I didn't make the call for him. I didn't explain the job. I didn't promise the contractor a favor. Joshua said, Thanks. You're welcome. 2 days later, he called again. He came by. What did he say? About $1,200 depending on the switches. That sounds fair. $1,200? It's more than fixtures. He said the same thing. He looked at the wiring. Joshua made a frustrated sound. I didn't know it was that involved. You didn't have to know. You had to ask. He was quiet. Okay. That one word sounded different. For the first time, refusing a job had worked. Joshua had called someone, received a price, and learned what my free Saturdays were worth. The cost arrived on Sunday. He usually called by noon, even if he needed something. That Sunday passed without a message. So did Monday. On Tuesday, Natalie called. I was outside cleaning leaves from the front drain. Are you home? She asked. Yes, we're nearby. Who's we? Me and Mom. What do you need? We don't need anything. We thought we'd stop in. That was unusual enough that I nearly said no. Instead, I said, Give me 10 minutes. They arrived with coffee and a white paper bag. Heather behaved as though the kitchen conversation had never happened. We brought muffins, she said. She placed the bag on my counter. Natalie handed me a coffee. We were going past the bakery. You said you were nearby. We were. Heather looked around the kitchen. You've kept this place exactly the same. It works. I didn't say it didn't. She walked into the living room without asking. Natalie stayed beside me. How are you? She said. Fine. You and Joshua haven't talked. He can call. He thinks you're angry. I am. She looked down at her cup. He hired the electrician? I know. He couldn't really afford it right now. Then he could have waited. The lights have been bad for months. They still turn on. Heather came back holding a small stack of pamphlets. She set them on the kitchen counter. I picked these up for Frank's sister, she said. They gave me extras. The top one had a picture of a gray-haired couple standing in a bright kitchen. The title said, Planning Ahead at Home. Under it were smaller pamphlets about organizing bills, emergency contacts, and help for older adults living alone. I looked at Heather. Why are you giving these to me? I'm not giving them to you. I just set them down. In my kitchen, she smiled. Arthur, everyone should plan ahead. Natalie said, Mom. What? His house has stairs. He lives alone. I manage fine. Nobody said you didn't. The wording was too familiar. I picked up the pamphlets and handed them back. Heather didn't take them. You don't even want to look? No. Why does every practical suggestion become an insult? Because you brought information I didn't request into my house. Natalie reached for the stack. I'll take them. Heather held up a hand. Leave them. He may read them later. I kept my eyes on her. No? Take them with you. Her smile disappeared. Natalie gathered the pamphlets. We should go. They had been inside less than 10 minutes. At the door, Heather said, Thank you for the coffee. You brought the coffee. Right. Natalie gave me a quick hug. It felt automatic. After they left, I found one pamphlet still on the end table. It was about letting a trusted family member help manage mail and monthly bills. I didn't believe Heather had forgotten it. I called Natalie. She answered in the car. Did your mother put that pamphlet on my end table? What pamphlet? The the one about managing someone else's mail. I heard Heather say something beside her. Natalie lowered her voice. She probably said it there when she was looking around. Why was she looking around? I don't know. Did Joshua tell her I questioned the statements? There was a pause. He mentioned it. What did he say? That you were worried about charges you didn't remember. I remembered them. They weren't mine. I know that. Does Heather? Another pause. She thinks you've been under stress. I looked at the pamphlet. Because I stopped paying for her dinners? Arthur, that isn't fair. It's accurate. She's worried because you got upset over the mail and then changed your mind about helping Joshua. I didn't change my mind. I said no. You never say no to him. That was the wider problem. My refusal hadn't made them reconsider their requests. It had made them question me. I said, tell Joshua I want him to call me tonight. What should I tell him it's about? My mail. Natalie went quiet. Then she said, he was only trying to help. With what? She didn't answer. Natalie, with what? He said your statements were getting confusing. I looked toward the blue bowl on the hall table. Did he ask you to say that? No. Did Heather? The line stayed silent. I ended the call, carried the pamphlet into my office, and placed it beside the opened envelope. Then I unlocked my desk and checked every club statement in the folder. 2 monthly statements were missing. I checked again, even though I knew where I kept them. The statements were filed by month. There was a gap in April and another in June. I remembered opening the April statement at the kitchen table. It had included the first lunch charge I didn't recognize. I had written a question mark beside it. The June statement had arrived on a Friday. Joshua stopped by that same afternoon to return a drill. I called him. He answered with, I was about to call you. Where are my April and June club statements? He didn't speak. Joshua? I don't know. You were here both days. I'm here a lot. You used to be, he sighed. What are you accusing me of now? I'm asking where the statements are. I don't have them. Did you take them? No. The answer came too quickly. I opened my calendar while he was still on the line. You returned my drill on June 19th. So, the statement was on my counter. I don't remember seeing it. You opened the most recent envelope. I apologized. That isn't the missing statement. He raised his voice. Then, maybe you misplaced it. I looked at the empty spaces in the folder. Did you take either statement to show Natalie? No. To show Heather? No. Did Heather ask to see them? He stopped answering. That silence was enough to change the question. What did she ask you to do? Nothing. Joshua? She thought it would help if someone checked the bills with you. Why? Because you were upset about charges you didn't remember. I remembered that they weren't mine. I know. Then why would I need help checking them? She was concerned. She was on the bills. I'm not defending her. You're repeating her explanation. He spoke more quietly. Can we talk tomorrow? We're talking now. I don't want to do this on the phone. Then come over. It's almost 9. You live 15 minutes away. He arrived at 9:20. I had placed the club folder on the kitchen table. The pamphlet about managing mail sat beside it. Joshua looked at both and took off his jacket. You kept that? Sit down. He remained standing. Dad, you're making this bigger than it is. Then make it small. Tell me where the statements are. He pulled out a chair. I don't know where they are now. Where were they? He looked toward the dark window. I took the April one. And June? Natalie took that. Why? To look at the charges. You could have looked at them here. You weren't home. So, you took my mail. It was already open. That doesn't make it yours. He leaned forward. We weren't stealing from you. I didn't say stealing. You keep using these words that make everything sound terrible. I'm using the word took. He rubbed his hands together. Fine, we took 2 statements. Without asking. Yes. Where are they? I gave April's to Natalie, and she gave it to Heather. His eyes moved away from mine. That's what I thought. Joshua shook his head. Heather wanted to compare the charges. Heather is not your mother. He looked at me sharply. You know what I mean? I do. That's why I corrected you. He sat back. Natalie's mom wanted to pay you back. She could have asked for the amount. She wanted to make sure it was accurate. The charges were hers. Some were. All 5 missing meals were connected to her. He stood again. I'm not going in circles. Sit down. I'm 40 years old. Then stop taking mail from your father's kitchen. He stared at me. I didn't raise my voice. After a moment, he sat. I asked, who has the June statement? Natalie, is it at your house? I think so. I want both statements returned tomorrow. Okay? Not copies, the originals. Okay. And neither of you touches my mail again. He looked at the pamphlet. This isn't what that was about. What was it about? Planning? For what? You live alone. I've lived alone for 5 years. You're getting older. So are you. He made a frustrated sound. Why do you fight every conversation? I didn't start this conversation. Someone removed my mail. We were trying to understand why you suddenly became suspicious. I became suspicious because charges appeared that nobody explained. You could have asked us. I did. He looked down. That answer left him nowhere comfortable. I said, who suggested taking the statements? Heather said the amounts might be confusing without the itemized receipts. Did she ask you to take them? She didn't use those words. What words did she use? Joshua stared at the table. She said somebody should keep an eye on things. There it was. Things meaning my money, your bills. My bills are my money. She thinks you're under pressure. From what? He looked tired now. Losing Mom, living here by yourself, doing too much work, your work. I haven't asked you for anything since the garage. That was last week. He opened his mouth, then closed it. I pushed the pamphlet toward him. Take this back. He picked it up. Dad, nobody thinks you can't take care of yourself. Then nobody needs my statements. It was 2 pieces of paper. It was my mail. He folded the pamphlet once, then realized what he was doing and flattened it. I'll bring everything tomorrow. Good. He put on his jacket. At the door, he stopped. Natalie's upset. She can call me. She feels like you blame her for all of this. She gave her mother the number. She was trying to do something nice. With my account, she knows that now. I opened the door, then she can return the statements. Joshua stepped onto the porch. Before leaving, he said, it would help if you didn't push Heather right now. Why? She takes things personally. So do I. I'm serious. So am I. He put his hands in his jacket pockets. Just keep the peace for a little while. I looked at him. Whose peace? He shook his head and walked to his truck. The next day, Natalie arrived alone. She carried a large envelope. I found both, she said. I opened it at the kitchen counter. The April statement was inside. So was June. My question mark remained beside the lunch charge. There were also 4 printed restaurant receipts. I hadn't seen those before. Where did these come from? I asked. Mom requested them. How? She called the club. Using your supplemental number? Natalie nodded. What did she tell them? That she was helping reconcile the account. Did you authorize that? I gave her my number. That isn't an answer. She placed her purse on the counter. Yes. I told her she could ask for the receipts. When? After you questioned the charges, so before our dinner conversation. Yes. I looked through the receipts. Each showed the table total, the supplemental member number, and the signature line. 3 had Heather's signature. 1 had Frank's. Natalie watched me reading them. Mom was going to repay everything. Why didn't she sign her own name when she made the phone reservations? She did at the restaurant. That isn't what I asked. I don't know what she said on the phone. But you told the club she could act through your card. Yes. Why? Natalie leaned against the counter. Because she kept saying you wouldn't mind. And you believed her? I believed you liked taking care of people. I set the receipts down. I like choosing when I help. I know that now. Do you? Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. You don't have to talk to me like I'm some kind of thief. I don't think you're a thief. Then what do you think? I think saying no to your mother was harder than spending my money. She looked away. That was the first time she didn't defend herself. After a moment, she said, probably. We stood there without speaking. Then she asked, what do you want me to do? Stop giving her access. I already told her. Change whatever information she has saved. How? Delete my member number from her phone. Remove any pictures of the card. Tell her she has no permission to speak for me. Natalie nodded. Okay. And return your supplemental card. Her head came up. You're canceling it? I looked at the envelope. I had planned to ask for both cards. The words were ready. Then I thought about what the card actually told me. If I removed it, every future question would disappear. They would say I had overreacted. Joshua would blame the boundary instead of looking at his choices. I still wanted to know whether he could use the privilege correctly once the rules were clear. Not yet, I said. Natalie looked confused. Then why do you want the card? To copy the number and confirm it matches these receipts. You already have the last digits. I want the full number. She took the card from her wallet and handed it to me. I copied the number onto the statement. Then I returned it. Her fingers closed around the card. Am I still allowed to use it? You and Joshua may use it for your own meals. What about guests? Ask me first. She nodded. I will. That was the test I left in place. Everything else changed that afternoon. After Natalie left, I called Broadkill House. I asked them to add a verbal password to the primary account. No one could request statements, receipts, address changes, or account information without it. The woman explained that the supplemental cards would still work for reservations and charges. The password only protected primary account details. That's what I want, I said. She asked whether I wanted to revoke the supplemental privileges. I looked at the membership agreement. No. She confirmed the new restriction and read it back to me. Then I changed the statements to electronic delivery. Printed copies would stop arriving after the current cycle. The next time someone reached for my mail, there would be nothing useful to take. I printed the confirmation and locked it in my desk. Then I called Joshua. He answered carefully. Did Natalie bring everything? Yes. Good. I've secured the account information. What does that mean? It means nobody gets statements or receipts without a password. He was quiet. Do you think we'd do it again? I think you already did it twice. He let that sit. Then he said, Are the cards canceled? No. Why not? You know the rules now. I knew them before. No, you knew I usually paid. He didn't answer. I continued. I'm also done taking repair requests from you, Natalie, Heather, or Frank. Permanently? I didn't say permanently. What am I supposed to do if something breaks? Call a contractor. That's easy for you to say. It's what everyone else does. He lowered his voice. Heather's going to think this is aimed at her. It is partly aimed at her. Dad. She used my account. She encouraged you to take my mail. She didn't encourage me. She said somebody should keep an eye on things. That isn't the same. It was enough for you. He breathed into the phone. She thinks you're pulling away from the family. I'm pulling away from unpaid work and unapproved bills. To her, that's how you contribute. I waited. Joshua realized what he had said. What do you mean? I asked. Nothing. No. Say it again. I'm saying everybody contributes differently. And my part is money and repairs? That isn't how I meant it. How did you mean it? He sounded trapped. I don't know, I said. Ask Heather. It sounds like her sentence. He didn't deny it. That evening I made a list of every active repair they had mentioned. Garage lights, a loose dining room switch, an outdoor outlet at Heather's house, Frank's workshop fan. I wrote one word beside each item, declined. The list didn't make me feel strong. It made the kitchen feel empty. At 6:30 the next morning, a woman I didn't know called my mobile phone. Mr. Bennett, I'm confirming our visit for Thursday afternoon. What visit? The home planning consultation. I didn't schedule a consultation. There was a pause. I have the request here under your address, 41 Chestnut Street. Who made the request? I'm showing Natalie Bennett as the family contact. I gripped the phone. What did she tell you? That the family would like to discuss support with household decisions and financial organization. I looked toward my locked desk. The woman continued. She noted that you may be resistant at first. Don't cancel the visit, I said. The woman hesitated. You'd still like us to come? She explained that the consultation was voluntary. She wasn't from a government office or medical practice. Her company helped families organize household support, transportation, meals, and bill reminders. Did Natalie say I agreed to this? I have a note that the family would explain it when we arrived. She requested that she and another family member attend. Which family member? Heather Harrison. That answered one question. What time Thursday? 2 o'clock. I'll be here. After we ended the call, I sent Natalie one message. I kept Thursday's appointment. We'll discuss it then. She called within a minute. You don't have to meet with her. You scheduled it. It was only information. You told her I might resist. Mom filled out the form. Whose name is on it? Mine. Then you scheduled it. She lowered her voice. I thought it might make things easier. For whom? Everybody. What decision can I make? That's not what this is. The woman said household decisions and financial organization. She probably used standard wording. She read your request. Natalie went quiet. I said, I'll see you Thursday. Joshua called that evening. Why are you going through with this? I want to hear what you think I need. I don't think you need anything. Then why is your wife listed as the family contact? Heather asked her to be. That isn't an answer. I didn't know Natalie submitted it. Did you know they were discussing it? He took a breath. I knew Heather found someone, and you said nothing. I thought it was a brochure. There were brochures. Okay, I didn't know there was an appointment. I believe that part. Are you coming Thursday? No. Why not? Because I don't agree with how they handled it. Have you told Natalie that? Another pause. I told her I wasn't getting involved. That is getting involved. You're just doing it silently. He sounded annoyed. What do you want me to do? Pick a side? There shouldn't be sides over whether I can open my own mail. He had no answer for that. On Thursday morning, I cleaned the house the way I usually did. I didn't make it look better for the visitor. I took out the trash, wiped the kitchen counter, and vacuumed the living room. Then I checked my desk. The club agreement was locked inside. So were the return statements, restaurant receipts, and password confirmation. At 1:45, Heather's car stopped outside. She and Natalie came to the door together. I let them in. Heather carried a notebook. Natalie carried nothing. You didn't need to dress up, Heather said. I was wearing clean work pants and a blue button-down shirt. This is how I dress. I only meant this is informal. I know what you meant. Natalie stepped between us. Can we please keep this calm? I moved aside. You scheduled it. The consultant arrived at 2. She introduced herself as Ms. Lane. She carried a thin folder and a tablet. We sat in the living room. Ms. Lane took the chair nearest the front door. Heather and Natalie sat on the couch. I remained in my own chair. Ms. Lane looked at me. Mr. Bennett, before we begin, I want to confirm that you understand this is a voluntary planning conversation. I understand, and you can end it at any time. Yes. Heather opened her notebook. Ms. Lane continued. I received an online request from Natalie Bennett. It mentioned some recent concern with mail, recurring expenses, and home maintenance. I looked at Natalie. What concern with home maintenance? She glanced at Heather. Heather answered. You've stopped completing jobs. I stopped doing free jobs at other houses. Ms. Lane held up one hand. I'm not here to settle a family disagreement. Good, I said. I'm here to learn what they submitted. She looked at her tablet. Mr. Bennett, I can share the stated concerns because the appointment is for you. Would you prefer to speak privately? Heather closed her notebook. That seems unnecessary. I said, they can stay. Ms. Lane read from the request. It said I had recently become preoccupied with ordinary expenses. It said I questioned charges after previously approving them. It said I had become suspicious when family members tried to help organize paperwork. It also said I was leaving electrical work unfinished. I waited until Ms. Lane stopped. Then I asked, does it say where that unfinished work is? She checked. It mentions garage lighting and an outdoor receptacle. Neither is at my house. Heather shifted on the couch. I said, the garage belongs to Joshua and Natalie. The outdoor outlet is at Heather's house. I declined both jobs. Ms. Lane typed something. Heather said, after agreeing to do them, I never agreed to your outlet. You said you'd look at it. I said I'd look when I had time. That was before you used my dining account. Ms. Lane looked up. Is the recurring expense concern related to a dining account? Yes. Natalie spoke quickly. That part was a misunderstanding. I looked at her. Explain it. She pressed her palms together. My mother used my supplemental membership information to make reservations. Arthur pays the primary account. How many reservations? Ms. Lane asked. Heather said. A handful. I said. 5 I didn't recognize, plus others I knew about afterward. And you questioned those charges? Ms. Lane asked. Yes. Had you approved them? No. Heather leaned forward. He had always paid before. Ms. Lane looked at her. That wasn't my question. Heather sat back. For the first time since the appointment began, she stopped directing the room. Ms. Lane asked me whether I managed my other monthly bills. Yes. Any missed payments? No. Any utilities disconnected? No. Any trouble purchasing food, medication, or household supplies? No, Heather said. He's very proud. Ms. Lane didn't respond to that. She asked whether I wanted help with bill reminders. No. Mail sorting? No. Meal delivery? No. Transportation? No. Then she asked, is there any support you requested that isn't being provided? I looked at Natalie. No. Ms. Lane rested the tablet on her knee. Then I don't have a service to recommend today. Heather stared at her. That's it? That's the purpose of the consultation. You haven't looked through anything. Mr. Bennett hasn't requested organizational help. The whole issue is that he won't request it. Ms. Lane remained calm. I can't create a service plan for a competent adult who declines voluntary services. Heather's face changed at the word competent. I noticed it. So did Natalie. Heather asked, "Can you determine that in one conversation?" No. I'm not conducting a medical or legal capacity evaluation. Then why did you use the word? I used it in the ordinary sense. Mr. Bennett understands why I'm here and has declined the services. I said, "Can I have a copy of the original request?" Ms. Lane looked at Natalie. As the person named in the request, Mr. Bennett can receive the intake summary. Natalie nodded. "That's fine," Heather said. "That form contains family information. It contains statements about me," I said. Ms. Lane offered to email it. "I'd like a printed copy, too. I can mail one. Email is enough for now." She confirmed my address on her tablet. Heather stood. This was a waste of time. Ms. Lane closed her folder. "I'm sorry we couldn't help. You didn't even try." I completed the consultation requested. That was the useful part. She didn't take sides. She simply refused to turn an unwanted appointment into permission. At the door, I asked Ms. Lane to note that I hadn't authorized the request. She typed it into the tablet while I watched. "I've added that," she said. "Thank you." After she left, Heather remained by the window. Natalie stood near the couch. I said, "Who wrote that I approved the charges?" Heather turned around. "Nobody wrote that exact sentence. The request said I questioned charges after approving them. You'd approved the membership. That isn't the same." "It's how I understood it. You filled out the form? I helped." I looked at Natalie. "She dictated most of it," Natalie said. Heather gave her a sharp look. "You were sitting right there? I didn't know you were going to write about the electrical work. You agreed that his behavior changed." Natalie's face tightened. "He stopped helping because he was angry." Heather said, "Exactly. That doesn't mean he forgot how. I never said he forgot how." I walked to the kitchen and picked up Heather's notebook from where she had left it on the side table. I handed it to her. "You need to leave." She took it. "Arthur, refusing help doesn't prove you don't need it. Misstating facts doesn't prove I do. This is why people are worried." "Which people?" "Your family." "Frank?" She didn't answer. "Joshua?" "He sees the change." I looked at Natalie. "Do you?" She took a long time. "I see that everything has become a fight. That wasn't the question." She looked toward her mother. "I think you're angry." "I am angry," Heather said. "Anger can affect judgment. So can entitlement." Natalie picked up her purse. "We should go." Heather didn't move. "You've shut off information. You've stopped helping. You're keeping records on everyone. I keep records on my own account. You're isolating yourself. You arrived without being invited and arranged at a consultation in my house." She stepped closer. "Because nobody else will tell you this. Your skills and your money are what you've always brought to this family. That's how you show love. Now you're taking both away and acting surprised that people notice." There it was, plainly stated. I looked at Natalie. She stared at the floor. I said, "I also brought myself." Heather's expression softened in a way I didn't trust. "Of course you did. Then why hasn't anyone asked for that?" She opened her mouth, but no answer came. Natalie reached for the door. "Come on, Mom." Heather followed her onto the porch. Before stepping outside, she turned back. "If you keep making sudden decisions, someone is going to have to look at whether those decisions are sound." "Who?" "There are formal ways families handle these situations." Natalie said, "Mom, stop." Heather walked toward the car. Natalie remained on the porch. I didn't know she was going to say that. "You knew what she wrote, not all of it. You put your name on it." She nodded once. "I know." It was the first choice she had owned without adding an excuse. "I'm sorry," she said. I didn't tell her it was all right. She left. At 4:30, the intake summary arrived by email. I printed it and read every line. At the bottom was a section Ms. Lane hadn't read aloud. Under the question about future family planning, Heather had entered a response through Natalie's form. If Arthur remains resistant, the family may need documentation of his ability to manage financial decisions. I locked the summary in my desk. Then I called Joshua. He answered at work. I read him that sentence. He was silent. Finally, he said, "I didn't know she'd gone that far." "What did you know?" "That Heather wanted something in writing." "From the consultant?" "Yes. For what?" "I thought it was to convince you to accept help. She mentioned formal options. Joshua lowered his voice. Dad, don't react yet. Why not? Because she's already asking Natalie about a competency petition. Has she filed it? I don't know. Ask Natalie. She won't talk about it while Heather's there. Is Heather there now? Yes. Put Natalie on the phone. I'm at work. Then how do you know? He went quiet. She texted me. What did she say? That her mom found the forms. Forms for what? I don't know the exact name. You just called it a competency petition. That's what Heather called it. I stood beside the desk with Ms. Lane's summary in my hand. Do you agree with her? No. Have you told her? I told Natalie it was too much. That isn't Heather. Dad, I'm trying. No. You're passing messages between people and calling that trying. He lowered his voice. What do you want me to say? Say I know what I'm doing. I've said that. To me, I'll call Heather. When? After work. Call me afterward. He didn't. The next morning, someone knocked at 9:15. A man stood on my porch holding a large envelope. He asked my name and handed it to me. I signed a small screen. Then he left. The first page had a court heading. Underneath it was my full name. Heather had filed a petition asking for a formal review of my ability to manage financial decisions. She requested temporary oversight if the review found cause for it. She listed Natalie as a family contact. Joshua's name appeared as my adult son, but there was no signature beside it. I sat at the kitchen table and read the whole thing. The petition said I had become confused about recurring charges. It said I was refusing necessary home maintenance. It said I had reacted with suspicion when family members offered help with paperwork. It also said I had withdrawn from normal family involvement. I read that sentence 3 times. I hadn't withdrawn from dinners. They had stopped inviting me once I refused the repairs. The request used my boundaries as evidence against me. Attached to it was Natalie's intake form from the consultation. Heather had included the original version, not the updated summary Ms. Lane sent afterward. The page ended with a response deadline. I had less than 2 weeks. I called Joshua. He answered from his truck. She filed it. He didn't ask what I meant. I just found out. Your name is in it. I didn't sign anything. Natalie is listed as the contact. I know. Did she sign? I don't know. Stop saying that. He was quiet. I said, come here. I'm heading to a job. I was handed court papers with your wife's name on them. I can come tonight. What time? 6. Be here. He arrived at 6:20 without Natalie. I placed the petition on the table. He read the first page standing up. Then he sat. This isn't what she told us. What did she tell you? That it was a request for an assessment. This is a petition. I see that. Did Natalie sign anything? He turned through the pages. Her signature appeared near the back. Joshua stopped moving. She signed it, I said. He rubbed his forehead. She thought she was confirming the concerns. She was. She didn't understand they'd file it. Did she read it? I don't know. I looked at him. He corrected himself. I don't think she did. Where is she? At home, with Heather? Yes. Why didn't she come? She's upset. I'm the one named in the petition. I know. Does she agree that I can't manage money? No. Then what does she agree with? He closed the packet. She thinks you've been making choices out of anger. Which choices? The repairs, the account password, refusing the consultant. Those are my choices. I know. You keep saying that, then you sit next to people saying something else. He pushed the papers away. What do you want me to do? Tell the truth. I am, not just here. He stood and walked to the sink. If I confront Heather, it becomes a war inside my house. It already reached my house. He looked out the window. Natalie's caught between both of you. Natalie signed her name. She trusted her mother. With my legal independence, she made a mistake. Then she needs to correct it. He turned around. How? I don't know yet. You're asking her to go against her mother publicly. I'm asking her to go against a false statement. Joshua looked back at the petition. Some of it isn't false. I waited. He continued carefully. You have changed. My wife died. That's not what I mean? Then say what you mean. You don't let things go anymore. Which things should I let go? The meals, for one. I stared at him. He lifted both hands. I'm not saying they were right. You're saying I should have paid and stayed quiet. No. I'm saying once Heather offered to repay you, it could have ended. She filed this after I stopped paying for her dinners and fixing her house. You make it sound connected. It is connected. You don't know that. I tapped the petition. She used the charges and repairs as evidence. His face tightened. That doesn't mean she wants your money. Then what does she want? She wants everyone to stop fighting by putting herself near my finances. He looked down at the page naming Heather as the person willing to provide temporary assistance. I watched him understand that line. He sat again. I didn't see that. She put her own name down. He read the paragraph twice. Then he said, "That's not okay." It was a weak sentence, but at least it faced the right direction. "Call Natalie, now?" "Yes." He called and put the phone on speaker. Natalie answered. "Are you at your dad's?" "Yes." She sounded tired. "Mom said the papers were delivered." I said, "You signed them?" She went silent. "Natalie," I signed the intake statement. "Your signature is attached to the petition." That isn't what she showed me. "Did you read what you signed?" I read the first page. What did it say? That the family had concerns. "What concerns do you personally have?" She didn't answer. Joshua said, "Nat, Heather listed herself to manage his finances." "What? It's in the papers." "No." She said an outside person would review everything. She asked to be appointed temporarily if they find a problem. That's not what she told me. I said, "Will you put in writing that you didn't understand what you signed?" Heather's voice sounded in the background. "Don't agree to anything over the phone," Natalie said. "Mom, please." Heather came closer. "Arthur, this is exactly why a review is needed. You're pressuring Natalie." I asked her a question. "You demanded a statement." I asked whether she'd correct her signature through the proper process if necessary. I said, "Was it necessary for you to name yourself? Someone had to be available. You could have asked me. You would have refused." "Yes," which proves we couldn't discuss it. Joshua leaned toward the phone. "Heather, withdraw it." She went quiet. "What did you say?" I said, "Withdraw it." Natalie said, "Josh." He looked at me but kept speaking. "This went too far. He doesn't need you managing his money." Heather's voice hardened. "You haven't seen what I've seen?" "What have you seen?" "Unpaid attention to basic responsibilities, hostility, fixation on small expenses." I said, "Name one unpaid bill. This isn't a courtroom. You filed court papers." She stopped. Joshua said, "Withdraw it." Heather answered, "No. Let the process determine whether there's a problem." Then the call ended. Joshua remained at my table for another minute. Finally, he said, "I'm sorry." I gathered the papers. I need more than that. What can I do? Get Natalie to tell the truth in writing. She's scared of her mother. I know she may need time. I placed the petition back in the envelope. I don't have time. The next morning, I called an attorney in town. I didn't need a courtroom hero. I needed someone to tell me what the paper required. He reviewed the petition that afternoon. He said, filing it didn't give Heather control of anything. It didn't freeze my money. It didn't change my rights. I had time to respond, but ignoring it would be foolish. He asked whether I had records. I showed him the statements, the receipts, the password confirmation, and both versions of the consultation summary. He read Ms. Lane's note. "This helps," he said. "Does it end the petition?" "No." "What does?" "A clear response supported by ordinary records, bills paid on time, current accounts, your licensing status, your explanation of the disputed charges." He quoted a retainer of $2,000. I paid it. That was the first direct financial cost of Heather's campaign. Not a meal, not a fixture, money I had to spend protecting decisions that were already mine. The attorney gave me a list. I spent the next 3 days gathering documents, utility statements, tax payments, insurance records, my current master electrician license, bank statements showing every regular bill paid. I also wrote a plain account of the disputed dinners. No speeches, no accusations, just dates, amounts, who attended, and what happened when I asked. That work changed something in me. Until then, I had still been trying to restore the old arrangement with better rules. I wanted Joshua to visit without needing a repair. I wanted Natalie to treat the card as a courtesy. I wanted Heather to admit she crossed a line. That wasn't enough anymore. The petition showed me what happened when my value depended on compliance. The moment I stopped providing, my refusal became evidence that something was wrong with me. I couldn't make victory mean getting invited back to dinner. It had to mean my decisions remained mine, even if nobody liked them. On the 4th day, Joshua came to my house with a signed statement from Natalie. It said she had not intended to claim I was unable to manage my finances. It said Heather completed most of the consultation request. It also said Natalie signed without reading every attached page. I read it twice. Did she write this herself? Yes. Why didn't she bring it? She and Heather aren't speaking. That's a consequence of her choice. Joshua nodded. He noticed the document folders on my table. You've been busy. I had a deadline. He looked embarrassed. Is this going to cost a lot? It already has. How much? Enough. He touched the edge of the petition envelope. I can help. With the legal fee, if you need it. I looked at him. No. Why? Because I don't want another payment standing in for the thing I asked you to do. What did you ask me to do? Tell the truth where it costs you something. He lowered his hand. I gave him Natalie's statement back. Have her send this directly to my attorney. Not through you, not through Heather. Okay. And if anyone asks what you believe, answer for yourself. He looked toward the locked desk. What if my answer makes everything worse? It probably will. He gave a short, unhappy laugh. That's helpful. It's honest. After he left, I returned the folders to my desk. The supplemental cards were still active. The dining account remained open. I no longer saw either one as a bridge back to Joshua. They were simply privileges I had granted. My objective was no longer to feel useful enough to keep my place in the family. It was to find out whether anyone in that family could respect a no without trying to remove my right to say it. The next morning, I wrote one rule on a sheet of paper. If you want something from me, ask me directly. I taped it inside my desk drawer. It wasn't for them. It was for me. I had spent years responding to hints, a bad light, an expensive estimate, a dinner someone deserved. Nobody needed to ask because I usually volunteered. That stopped. My first call was to Frank. He answered after several rings. Arthur, do you have a few minutes? I suppose. Are you alone? He paused. Heather's at the grocery store. I need your own answer to something. All right? Do you believe I'm unable to manage my money? The question seemed to take the air out of him. No. Did Heather tell you she filed a petition? She told me she filed some papers. Did she include your name as someone concerned? I don't know. Are you concerned? He cleared his throat. I think this whole thing got out of hand. That isn't an answer. No, I don't think you need someone managing your money. Would you say that in writing? His silence lasted long enough that I looked at the phone. Frank, Heather won't like it. I didn't ask what Heather would like. I know. Then what's your answer? He lowered his voice. Yes. Thank you. I gave him my attorney's email address. I told him he could write 2 sentences. He didn't need to defend me or criticize Heather. He only needed to answer for himself. Before we ended the call, he said, about the workshop fan. I'm not installing it. I wasn't asking you to. That surprised me. I was going to ask whether that electrician you gave Joshua does smaller jobs. He does. Can I get the number? Yes. I gave it to him. Frank wrote it down and said, thanks. There was no hint about the cost, no pause waiting for me to offer. He asked for information, and I gave it. That was how help was supposed to feel. An hour later, my attorney called. He had received Natalie's statement directly. Did she change anything? I asked. She added that you've always managed your own bills. Does that matter? It answers the claim she was used to support. I spoke to Frank, too. Is he willing to send something? He said yes. If it arrives today, I'll include it. Frank's message came before lunch. It was 4 sentences. He said I had never appeared confused in his presence. He said he had no reason to believe I couldn't manage my affairs. He also said Heather had not asked him before, describing concern on behalf of the family. That last sentence mattered. My attorney attached it to the response. The response was delivered the following morning. Heather received the same documents because she had filed the petition. At 11, my mobile phone rang. She didn't say hello. You called Frank behind my back. I called Frank directly. You knew I wasn't home. I asked whether he was alone because I wanted his answer. He doesn't understand the process. He understood my question. You pressured him. I asked him if he thought I could manage my money. You made it sound like he had to choose between us. He chose his own statement. She breathed hard into the phone. You're dividing the family. No, I'm removing you from conversations that don't belong to you. I was trying to protect everyone. From what? From your decisions. They're mine. That's what people say when they don't understand the effect they're having. I opened my desk drawer and looked at the rule. What do you want from me right now? She stopped. What? You called. What are you asking me to do? I'm asking you to stop turning this into a battle. How? Withdraw your response. No, you don't even know what the review would involve. I know I don't consent to you managing anything. That isn't guaranteed. You requested it as a temporary option. No. She went quiet again. I said, if you have another request, say it directly. You're being childish. Then we're done. I ended the call. My hand shook afterward. I set the phone on the counter and made coffee I didn't want. The strategy had worked once. Heather had called expecting me to explain myself. Instead, she had to name what she wanted. She wanted me to withdraw my response. I had said no. The result became visible by that afternoon. Natalie called. Mom says Frank betrayed her. Frank answered a question. She's furious. Is the statement true? Yes. Then I'm not responsible for her reaction. Natalie let out a tired breath. She says she's going forward anyway. That's her choice. You sound like you don't care what happens to us. I care. I'm not going to prove it by surrendering. That isn't what I meant. What are you asking me to do? She went silent. Then she said, nothing. All right. Wait. I waited. Can I ask you something? Yes. Do you still want us to have the club cards? That was direct, for now. Why? Because you know the conditions. I haven't used mine since we talked. I know. How? There haven't been charges. She sounded offended. So you're watching us. I read my own account. That sounds exactly like something Mom would say you're doing. What does? Testing people. I looked out the kitchen window. I'm not asking you to spend anything. I'm asking you not to spend my money without permission. I understand. Then there shouldn't be a problem. She didn't answer. Before ending the call, she said, Mom sent money to cover the meals. To whom? Joshua. Why not to me? She didn't want to call you. That makes it Joshua's problem. She wants him to pass it on. Tell him to contact me directly. That evening, Joshua knocked on my door. He held an envelope. Heather gave us this. I led him into the kitchen. Inside was a cashier's check covering the 5 unrecognized meals. A note from Heather said the payment settled all disputed dining charges. I read the wording twice. Did she calculate this from the statements? From the receipts? She kept copies? I guess. Did she ask you to bring this? Yes. What did she say? That once you deposit it, the account issue is finished. I set the check on the counter. The money issue is finished. What's the difference? The money can be repaid. The access doesn't return to what she thought it was. Joshua pulled out a chair. She doesn't have access now. She has your wife's card information. Natalie deleted it from her phone. Did Heather delete the pictures? She says she did. Did you watch her? No. Then you don't know. He rubbed his face. Dad, take the check. I'm going to. He looked surprised. You are? She owes it. I thought you'd refuse to make a point. I don't need to lose money to prove I'm serious. He sat quietly while I endorsed the check. I used my bank's mobile deposit. The screen showed the payment as pending. I saved the confirmation with the account records. Joshua watched me. Does that help? It returns the money. I mean with everything else. It doesn't change the petition. Heather says she'll withdraw it if you agree to a family plan. What plan? She hasn't explained it. Then she hasn't made an offer. She wants everyone to sit down. Where? Our house. When? Sunday. I put the check back in its envelope. Who is everyone? You, me, Natalie, Heather, and Frank. What does she want to discuss? The club account? Repairs? How we handle things going forward? My finances? She said family responsibilities. That means my finances. Probably. I closed the banking app. What do you want? He leaned back. I want the petition gone. So do I. I want you and Heather to stop fighting. That depends on Heather. It depends on you too. What are you asking me to do? He looked at the envelope. Come Sunday. Listen, don't walk out the first time she says something you don't like. That isn't a direct request. It's 3 requests. He almost smiled. Fine. Will you come to the meeting? Yes. Will you listen? Yes. Will you stay? That depends on whether anyone threatens my rights. He accepted that. Then he said, will you keep helping with actual emergencies? What emergency? I don't have one now. Then ask when you do. He nodded. The pending deposit cleared the next afternoon. The money had returned. The permission had not. Frank called that same day. The electrician replaced the fan. How did it go? Fine. Took him 2 hours. Good. He charged me. I assumed he would. Frank gave a short laugh. I figured you might. Then he said, Heather knows I spoke to you. I know. She thinks you're setting everyone against her. Do you? No. That answer came quickly. He continued. I should have said something about the meals earlier. Why didn't you? You know why. I want to hear you say it. He sighed. Because letting Heather handle it was easier. It was the same choice Joshua kept making. I said, Are you coming Sunday? Yes. What are you asking me to agree to? She hasn't shown me the plan. Then why are you attending? To keep things calm. That hasn't worked yet. No, he said. It hasn't. Before we ended the call, he thanked me for the electrician's number. No broken object followed the thanks. On Sunday morning, Joshua sent the time in writing. 4 o'clock, our house. Family discussion only. I replied with one sentence. I'll attend, but I won't consent to financial oversight or restore Heather's access. 3 dots appeared on the screen. Then they disappeared. A minute later, Heather called. So, you've already decided not to cooperate. I decided what I won't consent to. You haven't heard the plan. I've read your petition. If you arrive with that attitude, this won't work. What are you asking me to do? She didn't answer directly. She said, Bring your Broadkill House agreement. No, I said. Heather gave a short laugh. You haven't even asked why. The original stays in my locked desk. You can bring a copy. That depends on what you want to discuss. The supplemental terms. You don't have supplemental privileges. Natalie does. Then Natalie can ask me. Heather's voice tightened. This is why the family needs a plan. I'll see you at 4. I ended the call. I copied the page describing supplemental use and immediate revocation. I covered my member number before copying it. The original went back into the desk. At 3:55, I parked outside Joshua's house. Frank's car was already there. Joshua opened the door. Thanks for coming. He looked tired. There were dark circles under his eyes. Where's Natalie? In the kitchen. Heather and Frank sat at the dining table. Natalie stood beside a stack of papers. Nobody had prepared food. I sat at the empty end of the table. Heather looked at my folder. You brought the agreement? I brought the relevant page. I placed the copy in front of me. She reached for it. I kept my hand on the paper. You can read it from there. Her eyes lifted. Arthur, I'm not going to steal your membership agreement. You arranged for my mail to be taken. Joshua pulled out the chair beside Natalie. We agreed not to start like this. I didn't agree to that. He sat down hard. Heather opened her notebook. I wrote a simple family plan. Did anyone else help write it? Natalie reviewed it. I looked at her. She nodded. Joshua, he said, I saw it this morning. Frank? Frank shook his head. Heather slid one page toward me. It had 6 numbered sections. The first said I would provide Natalie with monthly access to my Broadkill House statements. The second allowed Heather and Frank to dine there as Natalie's guests twice each month. The third said all charges would be reviewed quarterly for reimbursement. The fourth created a family calendar for household repairs. The fifth said I would complete safety-related work when reasonably able. The last section said Heather would withdraw the petition once the plan was signed. I read it once. Then I moved it back toward her. No. Joshua leaned forward. Dad, at least discuss it. I read it. You read it for 30 seconds. That was enough. Heather folded her hands. Which part do you object to? All of it, even reimbursement? You're asking me to finance your meals for 3 months before anyone decides whether to repay me. We can change it to monthly. No. Then immediate reimbursement. No. Her voice sharpened. Why not? Because you don't have access. This would give me access. I'm not giving it. Joshua pointed to the 4th section. What about the repair calendar? No. It says, when reasonably able. I'm able. I'm not agreeing. You helped before. Yes. So, what changed? I stopped volunteering. Heather said, you stopped participating. I looked at Joshua. Do you agree with that? He rubbed his jaw. I think the repairs are separate from the club. They're on the same page. That was Heather's wording. Then why are you asking me to discuss it? Because there has to be some middle ground between doing free electrical work and not doing it, between being part of the family and cutting everyone off. I looked around the table. I'm sitting here, Heather said, physically. Frank shifted in his chair. Natalie picked up the plan. Can we remove the repair section? Heather turned to her. That's one of the main concerns. Whose concern? I asked. Heather ignored me. Natalie crossed out the 4th and 5th sections. There. No repair schedule, Joshua said. That's better. She slid the page back to me. The dining access remained. So did the monthly statements. No. Natalie closed her eyes. What would you agree to? You and Joshua keep your supplemental cards. They're for your meals. Guests require my approval before the reservation. Nobody receives my statements. That's already what you said, she replied. Yes. Then what are you offering? Continued access for you and Joshua, Heather said. He's offering nothing new. I'm not negotiating against my own property. Joshua leaned back. Can we stop using words like property? The account is mine. We know. Then why does the word bother you? Heather tapped the page. This plan ends the petition. You should withdraw it because it's false. It raises legitimate questions. Which question remains? Whether you're making decisions based on reason or resentment. I looked at Natalie. Do you believe I can manage my finances? Yes. Then withdraw your support. I already gave the statement. Tell Heather to withdraw the petition. Natalie looked at her mother. Mom, I think you should. Heather's expression went flat. You helped identify the concern. I didn't agree to all of this. You signed it, I know. Now that Arthur has pressured you, you're changing your story. I said, she's sitting beside you. Heather turned to me. You've called everyone separately. You caught Frank alone. You made Joshua bring papers back and forth. You demanded Natalie send a statement through an attorney. I asked each person to answer for themselves. You separated us. No, I removed you as translator. Frank stared at the table. Heather noticed. Frank, say something. He raised his head. What do you want me to say? That this plan is reasonable. He looked at the page. I don't want access to Arthur's account. You enjoy the restaurant. I can eat somewhere else. Heather's face reddened. This isn't about one restaurant, I said. Then remove those sections. She pulled the plan back toward herself. No. There was the direct answer I had been waiting for. The petition wasn't protecting her family. It was pressure for a bargain. Joshua stood and walked to the counter. This is going nowhere, I said. It can end now. Heather withdraws the petition. The club access stays as I said it. Everyone pays for their own repairs, Heather said. And you face no consequence for how you've treated us. What consequence do you want? She looked at me without answering. I waited. Finally, she said, accountability. For what action? For using money to punish the family. I stopped paying for things I didn't approve. You took away a benefit everyone relied on. Natalie and Joshua still have the cards. Under surveillance. I received the bill. Joshua turned around. Dad, that does feel like surveillance. I looked at him. Do you hear yourself? I'm saying every dinner becomes another test. It becomes a charge on my account. So, cancel the cards. The room went quiet. He had said it as a challenge. Natalie looked at him. Josh, he continued, if you don't trust us, cancel them. Stop holding them over our heads. I haven't threatened you with them. You keep saying the rules, because the rules weren't followed, and now every conversation comes back to that. Heather nodded. That's exactly the fixation I described. I looked at Joshua. He knew what she was doing. I saw it in his face. He let her do it anyway. I asked, do you want me to cancel your card? He didn't answer. I asked you directly. No, he said. Then follow the conditions. Heather closed her notebook. This meeting is finished. You called it. And you refused every compromise. I refused access to my money and unpaid work. She stood. The petition continues. Natalie looked alarmed. Mom, we agreed you'd withdraw it after the meeting. We agreed I'd withdraw it if Arthur cooperated. He came. That isn't cooperation. Frank pushed his chair back. I'm leaving. Heather turned on him. We came together. I'll wait in the car. He walked out without looking at anyone. Joshua remained by the counter. I gathered my folder. He said, if you leave now, this gets worse. What are you asking me to do? Sit down. For what purpose? Work something out. I gave you the terms. You gave us rules. Yes. He shook his head. You want everybody to prove something. I want people to ask before spending my money. That isn't all you want. He was right. I wanted him to defend me without being cornered. I wanted him to hear Heather call a boundary, a symptom, and object before I looked at him. But I couldn't write that into an agreement. I put on my jacket. Natalie said, "Arthur, please, what are you asking?" She looked at the plan. "Could you let Mom use the club once a month if she pays that day?" "No." Heather laughed under her breath. Natalie's face changed. It wasn't anger, it was embarrassment. I said, "You may invite guests after asking me. Your mother does not get independent access. She won't agree to that. She doesn't have to. It isn't hers." Joshua walked back to the table. "Then, maybe we need some distance." Natalie looked at him. "What?" He kept his eyes on me. Every conversation turns into a fight. "Maybe we stop for a while." Heather said nothing. She didn't need to. I asked, "Is that what you want?" "I want this pressure to stop. Are you asking me not to call?" "For a few weeks. Does that include my birthday?" He looked down. "My birthday was less than a month away. We can figure that out later." That was the real loss, not the legal fee, not the dinners, not the hours I had given away. My son was asking me to disappear for a few weeks because I wouldn't sign over a monthly benefit to his mother-in-law. I nodded. "All right." He looked surprised. "That's it? You asked for distance. I didn't mean forever." "Neither did I." Natalie stood. "We don't want you alone. You want me quiet." "That's different," Heather said. "There you go again." I ignored her. At the door, Joshua followed me. "Dad," I turned. He lowered his voice. "You could make this easier. So could you. I'm stuck in the middle." "No. You keep walking into the middle because it saves you from choosing." He looked back toward the kitchen. I said, "I'll respect the distance you requested. What about the petition?" "I'll continue responding. That'll make Heather push harder." "I know." "And the cards, they remain active under the same conditions." He looked confused. "Why?" "Because taking space from me doesn't change the agreement." I stepped onto the porch. Joshua stayed inside. "Dad, if this goes badly, don't say I didn't warn you." I looked at him for a long moment. Warning me isn't standing with me. He shut the door. At home, I locked the copied membership page beside the original. Then I opened the bottom drawer and took out my wife's old address book. Joshua's number was written in her handwriting. She had crossed out his college apartment and added his first house. I rested my thumb on the page. For years I had treated any contact as better than no contact. That was why hints worked. That was why bills became invitations and repairs became visits. Now I had chosen the price openly. I would keep my decisions, even if the first thing they cost me was my son's company. The silence lasted 11 days. Joshua didn't call. Natalie sent one message saying the petition was being discussed. I didn't ask what that meant. Frank called once, but only to tell me the new fan was working well. Heather contacted my attorney instead of contacting me. On the 12th day, a notice arrived saying she had withdrawn the petition. There was no apology attached. She stated that the family hoped to resolve the matter privately. My attorney called after I received it. "The filing is closed," he said. "Can she submit another one? Anyone can file something. That doesn't mean it has merit." Did my response matter? Yes. So did the statements from Natalie and Frank. What about Joshua? He wasn't required to submit anything. I looked at his number on my phone. He chose not to. My attorney didn't comment. He sent me the final paperwork. I printed it, filed it with the rest, and paid his last invoice. The petition was gone. The cost remained. 3 days later, I called Broadkill House. I asked for the floor manager. The man who came to the phone verified my password. "What can I help you with, Mr. Bennett?" "I have 2 supplemental members." "Yes, sir." "If I revoke their privileges, how soon does that take effect?" "Immediately, once we confirm the request." "What happens to existing reservations?" "They may still be honored, but the diners must provide another accepted payment method." "So, the table isn't automatically canceled?" "Correct." "What if the reservation was made under a supplemental card before revocation?" "The reservation can remain. Charging authority does not. And the supplemental members aren't notified in advance. Not by us. They would learn when they tried to use the privileges." I looked at the copy of the agreement. Would they be able to call and restore access? No. Only the primary member can restore it. Could they change the primary phone number? Not without your account password. That removed the last uncertainty. The rule worked exactly as I remembered. The floor manager asked, "Would you like me to revoke the cards now?" I could have said yes. It would have been easy. 2 words and the whole argument would end. Joshua had asked for distance. Natalie had signed a statement used against me. Heather had tried to turn my refusal into legal incapacity. Canceling the cards wouldn't have been cruel by itself. They were mine to cancel. Doing it without any new misuse would have made it punishment. I didn't want that. "Leave them active," I said. "Of course, I may call again. We'll verify the password when you do." I thanked him and ended the call. Then I took the agreement back to my desk. My birthday was 9 days away. My wife used to plan birthdays early. She'd ask what I wanted, ignore my answer, and make reservations anyway. The last birthday we spent together was at Broadkill House. She ordered a slice of lemon cake and told the server not to put a candle in it. Then she pulled a candle from her purse and added it herself. "It's different when I embarrass you," she said. I still had the little paper matchbook she used. It was in the blue bowl with my keys. On the 6th day of silence, I took out my phone and called Joshua. He answered quickly. "Dad, hello, is everything okay?" "Yes." He waited. I said, "My birthday is next week, I know. I made a reservation at Broadkill House." He didn't answer right away. "For how many?" "2. Another pause. "Are you asking me to go?" "Yes." "What about Natalie? I'm asking you." He covered the phone for a moment. When he returned, he said, "What time?" 6:30. "I can do that." I sat down. "Are you sure?" "Yes." "If you need to check with Natalie, check now. I don't need permission to have dinner with my father." The sentence landed harder than he intended. "All right," he softened his voice. "Dad, I'm sorry I didn't call. You asked for distance. I was angry. So was I. Are we going to talk about everything at dinner? We can talk about whatever you want. I don't want another fight. Then don't bring a plan for me to sign." He gave a small laugh. "I won't." Before ending the call, he said, "I'll see you there." That was all I wanted to hear. I didn't tell Heather. I didn't call Natalie. I let the invitation belong to Joshua. The next morning, Broadkill House emailed the reservation confirmation. It listed my name, my mobile number, and a table for 2. I printed it, then stopped myself. There was no reason to put it in the desk. I left it on the kitchen counter. 2 days before my birthday, Joshua sent me a message. "Still good for Thursday?" I replied, "Yes." He sent back a thumbs-up picture. I didn't like those little symbols. They could mean anything from agreement to ending a conversation. Still, I took it as confirmation. On Thursday morning, I went to the grocery store. I bought eggs, coffee, bread, and 1 small chocolate cake. The woman at the bakery asked whether I wanted writing on top. "No, thank you." "Birthday?" "Yes." "Yours?" "Yes." She smiled. "Happy birthday." It was the first time anyone said it that day. At home, I put the cake in the refrigerator. Joshua usually called before work on my birthday. That year, he sent a message at 8:10. "Happy birthday, Dad. See you tonight." I read it twice. Then I put the phone on the kitchen counter and spent the morning changing a light fixture in my own hallway. The old one had worked. My wife just never liked it. She used to call it the upside-down salad bowl. I had bought a replacement months earlier. It remained in the box because someone else's repair always seemed more urgent. I shut off the breaker, removed the old fixture, and checked the ceiling box. The wiring was sound. I mounted the new light and turned the circuit back on. It lit the hallway evenly. I stood beneath it longer than necessary. At noon, I made a sandwich. At 2, I ironed a shirt. At 3:30, my phone rang. Joshua's name appeared on the screen. I answered. "Hey, happy birthday again." "Thank you." He sounded distracted. I heard movement behind him. "Dad, I've got a problem." I looked at the shirt hanging from the cabinet door. "What happened? Natalie needs me at home tonight. Is she all right?" "Yeah, she's fine. What does she need? It's just something we have to deal with." "What kind of something?" He paused. "Family stuff. I'm family. That's not what I meant." "Are you canceling dinner?" "I'm asking if we can move it. To when? Maybe this weekend." "Which day?" "I don't know yet." I sat at the kitchen table. "Joshua, is Natalie sick?" "No." "Did something break?" "No." "Is anyone in danger?" "No." "Dad, stop. She needs me here." "For what?" He lowered his voice. "I don't want to get into it over the phone." I heard a woman say something in the background. It wasn't Natalie's voice. Joshua covered the phone. The sound became muffled. When he came back, he said, I have to go. Who's there? Nobody. The television is on. The television didn't call him Josh. I said, you agreed to dinner. I know. You confirmed 2 days ago. I know. Then tell me the truth. He went quiet. After several seconds, he said, Natalie's parents are here. At your house? Yes. What do they need? Heather's upset about everything. So, you're canceling my birthday dinner to sit with Heather. That's not fair. It's what you just told me. I'm trying to keep things from blowing up. They already did. Can we please do this later? Later when? I said this weekend. No. You said, maybe this weekend? He let out a breath. Dad, I can't come tonight. That was the first direct sentence in the call. All right, I said. He sounded relieved. Thank you. We'll celebrate soon. I didn't agree. He ended the call. For a while, I remained at the table. The reservation confirmation lay beside my phone. My iron shirt hung from the cabinet handle. At first, I thought about calling him back. I could have made the request smaller, coffee instead of dinner, half an hour instead of an evening. That was the old habit. I looked down the hall at the new light. I had finally completed one job in my own house because I stopped giving the day away. I called Broadkill House. The floor manager came to the phone. He verified my password. I need to revoke both supplemental memberships. Joshua Bennett and Natalie Bennett? Yes. Effective immediately? Yes. He asked me to confirm that I understood existing reservations might still be honored with another payment method. I understand. He entered the restriction. Both supplemental cards are now inactive for charging in new reservations, he said. Any existing table remains subject to payment at the restaurant. Can either card be restored without me? No. Thank you. I ended the call. The action took less than 3 minutes. I hadn't used it to force Joshua into dinner. He didn't know I had done it. I wasn't trying to win back his attention anymore. I needed to know whether there was anything between us once the repairs, payments, and privileges were gone. The answer would cost me whatever relationship had depended on them. I put the phone down, then I opened the cabinet above the refrigerator and took out a bottle of bourbon. I poured 1 glass, no toast, no speech. I sat at the table and took 1 drink. At 5:40, I called Broadkill House and canceled my table for 2. I told them my guest couldn't attend. The woman asked whether I wanted a table for 1. No, thank you. I put the small cake on the counter. At 6, I made eggs and toast. I ate without turning on the television. At 7:12, my mobile phone buzzed. Broadkill House still had my number as the primary contact for every reservation connected to the supplemental cards. The message said the Harrison party's table was ready. I stared at the surname. Joshua had told me Heather and Frank were at his house. Now their table was waiting at the restaurant where he couldn't meet me. I didn't know how many people were on the reservation. I didn't know whether Joshua was there. I didn't know whether Natalie had made it before the cards were revoked. I knew only that the excuse and the expectation had arrived together again. I left the bourbon unfinished. Then I took my keys from the blue bowl, put on the shirt I had ironed, and drove toward Broadkill House. The parking lot was nearly full. I found a space near the back and walked around to the front porch. Through the windows, I could see the dining room lamps and white tablecloths. The woman at the entrance smiled. Good evening. I showed her the message. I received this for the Harrison reservation. She checked the screen beside her. Yes. Their party has been seated. How many people? 4. Can you tell me who checked in? She looked uncertain. I'm the primary member on the reservation. I gave her my name. She checked again. Mr. Bennett, would you like the floor manager? Yes. The same man I had spoken to on the phone came from the dining room. He recognized my name after I gave the password. The Harrison reservation was made through one of your former supplemental memberships, he said quietly. Before I revoked it? Yes. Who's at the table? I can show you the table. I can't discuss the guest's private information here. That's fine. He led me past the main dining room. Broadkill House had one table everyone wanted. It sat in a shallow window alcove facing the garden. My wife liked the view, but she disliked that table because every person walking by could see what you ordered. Heather loved it. She was seated with her back to the window. Frank sat beside her. Natalie was across from him. Joshua sat facing the doorway. He saw me first. His hand stopped halfway to his wine glass. I looked at the table. 4 dinner plates, a silver bucket holding a bottle of wine, crab appetizers in the center, a bread basket nobody had finished. Joshua stood. Dad, Natalie turned around. Her face lost all color. Heather looked annoyed before she looked surprised. Frank set down his fork. I remained beside the empty end of the table. Joshua said, "What are you doing here?" "The restaurant contacted me." Heather looked at the floor manager. "Why would you contact him?" The manager answered evenly. The primary phone number remained attached to the reservation. Natalie reached for her purse. "I thought I changed that." "You can't change the primary number," I said. Joshua stepped away from his chair. "Dad, can we talk outside? We can talk here." Heather looked around the dining room. "Please lower your voice." I hadn't raised it. The floor manager said, "I'll give you a moment." He returned toward the entrance. Joshua moved closer. "This isn't what it looks like." "What does it look like?" He looked back at the table. "Heather made the reservation a while ago." "How long?" Natalie answered. "Last week, before you confirmed dinner with me." Joshua closed his eyes briefly. "Yes. Did you know about this table when you called me?" He lowered his voice. "Not at first." "When did you find out?" "This afternoon." "What time?" "Does that matter?" "Yes." Heather said, "Arthur, sit down or take this outside." I looked at her. "You knew I had dinner plans with Joshua. He told us." "When?" "This afternoon." "What did you say?" She lifted her napkin from her lap. "I said we needed to resolve the family situation." "At Broadkill House?" "The reservation already existed," Natalie said. "Mom wanted this table." Heather looked at her sharply. "That isn't relevant. It is to me," I said. Joshua touched my arm. I stepped away. He dropped his hand. "Dad, I was going to explain. You told me Natalie needed you at home." "She did." Natalie stared at him. "I didn't ask you to say that." Joshua's jaw tightened. "Nat, not now." I asked her, "Did you need him at home?" "No." Heather leaned forward. She needed his support. "We all did." "You're not at home." "For heaven's sake, Arthur." "Plans changed. My plans changed. Birthdays can be moved." The people at the nearest table looked over. Heather noticed and smiled at them. Then she lowered her voice. "You're embarrassing everyone. I've been standing here for less than 2 minutes." "Exactly. There's no reason to make a display." Frank looked at his plate. I asked him, "Did you know it was my birthday?" He nodded. "Tonight?" "Yes," Heather said. "Frank, don't feed this." He turned toward her. He asked me. It was a small answer, but it made her pause. Joshua said, "I handled this badly." "You lied. I didn't want another argument." "So, you gave me a different reason." "Yes. Did you plan to tell me you came here?" He didn't answer. Natalie did. "We were going to celebrate with you Saturday. Did anyone ask me about Saturday?" "No," Heather said. "This is what families do. They adjust." I looked at the food. "Who's paying for tonight?" Heather's expression changed. Natalie reached for her wine. Joshua said, "We'll handle it. That wasn't the arrangement when you reserved." He looked at Natalie. She said, "I used my card before everything happened. You knew the conditions. I thought existing reservations were still attached." "They were attached to the reservation," Heather said. "Then there isn't a problem." I looked at her. "Did you expect my account to pay?" "We reimbursed the previous charges." "That wasn't my question." She set down her napkin. "Yes, we expected the membership to cover the table, and we would settle it later." "Who decided that?" "I did," Natalie said. "Mom." Heather turned toward her. "What?" "He wants direct answers." She looked back at me. "The reservation was made before your latest restriction. You can't change terms after people order." I didn't change the terms. Then stop standing over us like a collection agent. Joshua said, "Dad, I'll pay." Heather frowned. "Don't be ridiculous. This is a club charge." "It's fine," he said. "It isn't fine. We came here because the membership included dining access." I pulled out the empty chair at the end of the table, then finished dinner. Nobody moved. Joshua asked, "You're staying?" "Yes." Heather stared at me. "Why?" "I want to see how the arrangement works." She looked toward the entrance. "This is absurd." Frank shifted his chair to give me more room. I sat. A server came by and asked whether I wanted a menu. "No, thank you," Heather said. "Bring him a glass of wine." "I don't want wine." "Then water." "I'm fine." The server left. For several minutes, nobody spoke. Joshua sat down again. His dinner had gone cold. Natalie pushed food around her plate. Frank ate 2 more bites, then stopped. Heather finished her wine. She was the first to recover. "We didn't plan this to hurt you," she said. "You planned not to tell me. That was Joshua's decision." He looked at her. "You told me not to upset him before the petition was settled. The petition is settled. It was withdrawn 3 days ago, and this reservation was already made." Joshua said, "You said we needed to show everyone we were still a family." Heather lifted her chin. "We do." I looked at the 4 place settings. "Who did you mean by everyone?" She didn't answer. Natalie whispered, "Arthur, I'm sorry." I nodded once. Her apology didn't move the check. Dessert menus arrived. Nobody wanted one. Heather ordered coffee. Frank asked for the check. She looked at him. "We don't need the check." "Yes," he said. "We do." The floor manager brought it himself. He held a black folder and placed it beside Joshua. Heather said, "That goes on the Bennett account." The manager remained standing. "I'm afraid the supplemental charging privileges are no longer active." Natalie looked at me. "What?" Joshua's face went still. Heather said, "The reservation was made before any change." "Yes," the manager replied. "The reservation remained valid. Payment privileges did not." "When were they removed?" "I can only discuss account actions with the primary member." She pointed toward me. "He's sitting right there." The manager looked at me. "Mr. Bennett, the table requires another accepted payment method." Heather turned in her chair. "You canceled the cards?" "I revoked the supplemental privileges." "When?" "After Joshua canceled dinner." Joshua stared at me. "You did this tonight?" "Yes." "You didn't know we were here?" "No." Natalie opened her wallet and pulled out her supplemental card. "Is this useless now?" "For charging and reservations, yes," the manager said. "Can he authorize this meal?" "The linked account is restricted. The current balance must be settled at the table by another payment method." Heather leaned toward him. "He is the primary member. He can tell you to put it through." The manager stayed calm. "He may restore supplemental access through the club office. That would be a separate account action. Until then, I cannot place this check on his account." "Then let him restore it." The manager didn't look at me. "That is not my decision." Heather did. "Arthur, authorize it." "No." Her mouth opened slightly. "You're going to make us pay after sitting here watching?" "I didn't order anything. This was already arranged, by you, for the family. You chose the table. You chose the meal." She lowered her voice. "Don't do this in public. I made the account change from my kitchen. You knew this would happen. I didn't know this reservation existed." Natalie looked at Joshua. "He really didn't." Joshua opened the black folder. His eyes moved to the bottom. $1,240? Frank reached for his wallet. Heather stopped him. "No. This is Arthur's responsibility." Frank looked at her hand on his arm. Then he looked at me. "Did you approve this dinner?" "No." He removed her hand. Heather whispered, "Frank?" He put a card on the table. Joshua picked it up and handed it back. "I'll pay," Heather said. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. This wasn't your dinner." He looked at her. "I canceled on my father and came here." Nobody said anything. Joshua took a card from his wallet and placed it inside the folder. The floor manager picked it up. "I'll return with the receipt," Heather said. "Wait." He stopped. She looked at me. "This is your last chance to fix this," I said. "Nothing is broken." The manager walked away. Heather sat rigidly while he processed the payment. Natalie still held the inactive supplemental card. She turned it over in her fingers as though the plastic might explain what had changed. Frank stared through the window. Joshua didn't look at anyone. The floor manager returned and placed the receipt beside him. "Thank you, Mr. Bennett." For a second, both Joshua and I looked up. The manager clarified by looking at my son. Joshua signed the receipt. The payment had come from his own account. Broadkill House had refused mine while I sat at the table. The manager took the signed copy and left Joshua with the customer receipt. Heather reached for it. Joshua folded it once and put it in his pocket. Heather pushed her chair back. "You should dispute that charge," she told Joshua. He put his wallet away. "No, you paid under pressure. I paid for dinner. You paid because Arthur created a scene." "I didn't create anything," I said. She looked at me. "You came here knowing exactly what would happen." "I didn't know you had a reservation." "You expect us to believe that?" Natalie still held the inactive card. The text went to him, she said. Heather turned on her. That doesn't prove when he knew. I made the reservation, Natalie replied. I left his number on it. Her voice was quiet but clear. I forgot supplemental members couldn't change the primary contact. Heather picked up her purse. So, now this is your fault? I didn't say that. You're defending him after he made your husband pay for his own birthday humiliation. Joshua stood. He didn't make me cancel. Heather stared at him. No, I did, apparently. Everything is my fault tonight. Frank rose from his chair. I'm going to the car. We came together, she said. I know where the car is. He left. Heather looked at Natalie. Are you coming? Natalie placed the inactive card in front of Joshua. In a minute. Heather walked out alone. I stood. Joshua said, Dad, wait. I'm going home. We need to talk. Not here. He glanced around the dining room. That didn't stop you before. I answered the questions you asked. You sat there until the bill came. Yes. Why? Because I wanted to see who expected me to pay. His face tightened. You already knew. I knew Heather expected it. I didn't know what you would do. I paid. You did. He looked at me as if I had insulted him. Was that the test? No. Then what was? Whether you'd tell me the truth. He looked away. Natalie said, Josh. He picked up her card from the table. Where's mine? He asked her. In your wallet. He took it out and held both cards together. You could have warned me. You canceled dinner before I revoked them. That's not what I mean. You could have told me after. And then what? I would have known. You would have asked me to restore them. You don't know that. No, I don't. He looked at the cards. I said, bring them to my house when you're ready. He put them in his pocket. Natalie stood beside him. Happy birthday, Arthur. Heather had called it movable. Natalie said it only after the check. Still, I nodded. Thank you. I left them at the table. Outside, Frank was sitting in the passenger seat of Heather's car. She stood near the driver's door, talking with both hands. I walked past without stopping. At home, the unfinished bourbon remained on the kitchen table. I poured it down the sink. I took the cake from the counter and cut one slice. The new hallway light was still on. I switched it off before going upstairs. Joshua came by the next afternoon. He didn't call first. I opened the door and waited. He held both supplemental cards. I'm returning these. I let him inside. He placed them on the kitchen counter. Natalie had cut one card through the magnetic strip. Joshua's was whole. You can destroy mine too, he said. I will. He looked toward the refrigerator. Is that the cake? Yes. You bought your own birthday cake? Yes. His jaw tightened. You really want me to see everything, don't you? You walked into my kitchen. I came to return the cards. They're returned. He remained standing. I took the scissors from the drawer and cut his card through the strip. Then I put both pieces in an envelope. Joshua watched. You humiliated me. You lied to me. I said I handled it badly. You said that before the check. Then you stayed to watch. Yes. Why would a father do that? I placed the envelope beside the phone. You chose the company. You chose the meal. You chose the expense. I didn't choose that restaurant. You went. Heather had already reserved it. You sat down. He leaned both hands against the counter. You knew I couldn't afford a dinner like that. I didn't know the amount until the check arrived. But you let me pay. It was your table. It was their table. You joined it after canceling mine. His face reddened. You could have paid and dealt with us privately. That's what I had done for years. So this was revenge. No, revenge would have been ordering more food. He stared at me. I continued. I stopped financing the choice you made. He pushed away from the counter. You knew what would happen with Heather. I knew she'd demand an exception. She hasn't stopped talking about it. That's your problem to handle. You don't care what this does to my marriage. I care. I'm not paying to keep your mother-in-law calm. He looked at the envelope. What if I ask you to restore only mine? No. Even if Natalie doesn't have one. No. So I'm being punished for Heather. You canceled on me and lied about why. He was silent. I asked, would you have gone there if the account wasn't mine? He looked toward the window. I don't know. That's why the card stays canceled. He put on his jacket. At the door, he turned. The outdoor outlet at Heather's house stopped working completely. Call an electrician? She says it could be dangerous, then turn off the circuit and call an electrician. You won't even look at it? No. He gave a short laugh without humor. Of course. That answer was already settled before dinner. Everything is settled with you now. No. The subsidies are settled. He opened the door. What's left? That depends on what you come here for. He left without answering. Natalie called that evening. I know Joshua brought the cards. He did. I cut mine. I saw. She was quiet. Then she said, I'm the one who made the reservation. I know. Mom asked for the window table. I used my card because I didn't think you'd cancel it while the petition was happening. You assumed I'd be afraid to. Yes. That was another choice she owned. Did Joshua know before my birthday? I asked. He knew we had a reservation. He didn't know Mom was going to insist on that night until the afternoon. When did he decide to go? Before he called you. I closed my eyes. Thank you for answering. I told him to tell you we had a family problem. Why? Because I didn't want him to say we were going to the club. You knew how it sounded. Yes. Did you think my birthday could be moved? She took a breath. At the time, yes. And now? Now I think I said that because Mom wanted the table. I waited. She didn't ask me to forgive her. She said, I'm sorry. I heard you. Is that all? For tonight. She accepted it. 2 days later, Heather called from Frank's phone. I almost didn't answer. Arthur, you need to reimburse Joshua. No, he used money they need for household bills. Then he shouldn't have ordered that dinner. He didn't order it. He attended. You're splitting words. I'm answering directly. She lowered her voice. You set this up. I didn't know about the reservation. You keep hiding behind that. What are you asking me to do? Pay Joshua back. No. Then restore the membership so we can use what was already promised. No, you gave those cards as a gift. I granted supplemental access. You see, this is what I mean. Everything has become technical and cold. The account was always technical. I was the one pretending it meant closeness. She went quiet. Then she said, Don't expect us to include you after this. That's your decision. You're willing to lose your family over one dinner. No, you're asking for my account again while complaining about the last charge. Her voice sharpened. You haven't changed at all. Neither have you. She ended the call. Frank called me that night. I'm sorry she used my phone. Why did you let her? She said you wouldn't answer hers. That was possible. I paid Joshua for half the meal. You didn't have to tell me. I wanted you to know he didn't carry all of it. Did Heather contribute? No. That didn't surprise me. Frank continued. I told her I won't go back to Broadkill House. What did she say? Plenty. Did you tell her she was wrong? A pause followed. Yes. That surprised me. What happened? She slept in the guest room. I sat at the kitchen table. Frank, you don't need to report your marriage to me. I know. Then why are you calling? He thought about it. To say I should have spoken sooner. You should have. I know. We ended the call without pretending that fixed anything. The account statement arrived electronically at the end of the month. There were no supplemental charges. There never would be again. I filed it with the canceled cards. Joshua didn't call. Natalie sent no messages. Frank called once about fishing, then decided not to go because of the weather. He didn't ask me to repair anything. Heather remained silent. My house returned to its old rhythm. 1 cup in the morning, work around the house, keys in the blue bowl. 3 Sundays passed. On the 4th, someone knocked just after 10. I opened the door. Joshua stood on the porch holding 2 paper coffee cups. He lifted 1 cup slightly. Black, no sugar. What's in the other one? Too much cream. That's yours then. He smiled, but only for a second. Can I come in? What do you need? The question came out harder than I intended. Joshua looked at the cups. Nothing. No estimate. No broken light. No message from Heather. No. I stepped aside. He entered the hallway and stopped under the new fixture. You finally replaced the salad bowl. I looked up. That's what your mother called it, I remember. He carried the coffee into the kitchen. I didn't ask him to sit. He took his old chair anyway. For a while, we drank without talking. Then he said, Natalie wanted to come. Why didn't she? I asked her not to. Why? Because I needed to do this myself. I waited. He turned the cup between his hands. I've been trying to figure out what to say. You had 3 Sundays. I know. What did you figure out? He looked at me. I agreed with Heather because it was easier than defending you. The sentence remained between us, he continued. When she complained about the account, I told myself it was just dinner. When she pushed the consultant, I told myself it might calm her down. When she filed the petition, I told myself Natalie would fix it. And when you canceled on my birthday, I told myself we could celebrate later. You didn't answer the question. What question? Why did you go? He stared into his coffee. Because Heather said if I chose dinner with you, I was proving I didn't support Natalie. What did Natalie say? She said she wanted me there. At the restaurant? Yes. Did she mention my birthday? She said you'd understand. I didn't. I know. I took one drink. Joshua said, I should have told them no. Yes, I should have kept dinner with you. Yes, I should have defended you before the petition was filed. Yes. He gave a tired nod. You're not making this easy. I'm not making it anything. He looked around the kitchen. I thought you'd tell me we were done. Would that be easier? In some ways. That's why I'm not deciding it for you. He understood. He put both hands around his cup. I don't want the membership back. Good. I'm not asking you to pay me back. Good. And I'm not here because anything broke. I noticed. He drew a breath. Can I come for coffee next Sunday? That's a direct request. Yes. What time? 10. For how long? He looked surprised. I don't know. An hour? That works. He nodded. Then he asked, what if Natalie comes another week? She can ask me. Do you want to see her? I'm willing to talk to her. That's not the same. No? He accepted that too. We finished the coffee. When he left, he carried both empty cups to the trash. He didn't open a cabinet. He didn't look at the outlets. He didn't mention the garage. The next Sunday, he arrived at 10:03. He brought coffee and 2 plain bagels. We sat at the kitchen table and talked about a road closure near town. Then he told me about work. I told him the gutters needed cleaning. He didn't offer to help. I didn't ask. That sounds like nothing. At the time, nothing was exactly what I needed. The following Sunday, he called at 9. Dad, I can't make 10. I looked at the clock. All right, Natalie and I have an appointment. You don't have to explain. I know. Can I come at 2 instead? That mattered more than the explanation. Yes. He arrived at 2 with no coffee because he assumed I'd already had enough. He was right. On his 4th visit, he brought the electrician's written estimate for the garage. He placed it on the table but kept one hand on it. I'm asking for your opinion. Not for me to do the work? No. Not for me to call the contractor? No. Not for me to pay? He gave me a look. No. I read the estimate. The contractor had listed 4 new fixtures, 2 switches, wiring corrections, and labor. The price was fair. Approve it, I said. That's it. That's my opinion. Would you use those fixtures? I'd choose a warmer color temperature. He wrote that down. Anything else? Ask whether the labor guarantee includes the switches. He added another note. Then he folded the estimate and returned it to his pocket. Thanks. The contractor completed the work the next week. Joshua paid the bill. He sent me one picture after the lights came on. They work. I replied, good. No money moved between us. 2 weeks later, Natalie called me herself. Could I come by tomorrow? What for? To talk. About what? My part in everything. Will Heather be with you? No. Then come at 6. She arrived carrying a bakery box. I brought lemon cake, she said. Why? Joshua said it was your wife's favorite. It was. I know it doesn't fix your birthday. No. She set the box on the counter. I'm not asking it to. We sat down. Natalie had written something on 2 pages, but she didn't hand it to me. I needed notes, she said. That's fine. She looked at the first page. I gave Mom the supplemental number. I let her make reservations. I signed the consultation request. I signed the petition without reading it. I helped Joshua hide the dinner. She stopped. You don't have to list everything. Yes, I do. That was different from the night she asked me not to make her list it. She continued. I kept telling myself Mom was difficult, so everyone else had to be flexible. That meant you had to be flexible because you usually were. What changed? The check. I waited. Not the amount, she said. When the manager said the account couldn't be used, Mom looked at you like you had taken something from her. I realized she never thought it was yours. And you? I thought it was yours, but I treated your yes like it lasted forever. That was accurate. She folded the pages. I told her I won't make reservations for her again. I won't sign anything about you. I won't discuss your accounts. What did she say? She said you turned me against her. Did I? No. Her answer came without hesitation. Are you still speaking? Yes, but not about you. That's your relationship to manage. I know. She didn't ask for the club card. She didn't ask me to repair anything. Before leaving, she cut the lemon cake. We each ate a small piece. She noticed the old matchbook beside the blue bowl. Joshua said your wife carried her own birthday candles. She did. Natalie smiled. That sounds like her. It did. Heather never apologized. She sent one letter saying she regretted that the situation became unpleasant. She also wrote that her intentions had been misunderstood. I filed the letter without answering. Frank called me every few weeks. Sometimes we talked about fishing. Once he asked whether I knew someone who repaired generators. I gave him a number. He hired the man himself. Broadkill House emailed me an offer to replace the inactive supplemental cards. I declined. I kept my primary membership. I returned once for dinner alone and sat near the windows, but not at Heather's favorite table. Joshua and Natalie didn't ask to join. The weekly coffee lasted through spring. Not perfectly. Joshua missed one Sunday and forgot to call. I didn't chase him. He apologized the next day and asked for another time. He began making clear requests. Can I come by? Can you explain this estimate? Can we have coffee Saturday instead? I gave clear answers. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. He learned that no didn't mean I had stopped loving him. I learned that his disappointment didn't require me to purchase my way out of it. The legal papers stayed locked in my desk. So did the membership agreement and the canceled cards. The repair list remained declined. When something broke at Joshua's house, he called a contractor. When he wanted to see me, he called me. Those were separate calls now. If you've ever had to reset a family relationship after someone treated your generosity like permission, share your experience and subscribe for more stories like mine. One Sunday, Joshua arrived without coffee. The shop was closed, he said. I have some inside. I know, but I said I'd bring it. We can make our own. He followed me into the kitchen. I filled the old drip machine while he found 2 cups. One had the faded logo from my electrical supply company. The other was plain white. He poured his coffee first and added too much cream. I left mine black. The morning was warm, so we carried the cups outside. Joshua sat on the second step. I sat beside him. He asked whether I remembered teaching him to use a voltage tester. You kept touching the wrong end, I said. I was 12. You were old enough to read the warning. He laughed. A delivery truck passed on Chestnut Street. The sound faded toward town. Joshua took a drink and rested his elbows on his knees. Neither of us needed anything fixed. Joshua and I sat on the front steps, each holding our own coffee cup, while the return supplemental cards remained locked inside my desk.